Hello, and welcome to Mayday Plays Ironsworn. I'm Sergio, and tonight I am not your DM. I'll act as host, I'll take notes, I'll make sure we follow the rules of Ironsworn, but this game will be played cooperatively amongst all 7 of the fabulous members of Mayday Roleplay. Speaking of, hello my friends, how are you?
Hi, buddy.
Hello.
Good.
We are good.
So tonight is our session 0, and normally in session 0, I, the DM, would explain to you what you can expect, and I would define the world a little bit for you. But our session 0 is going to be a little bit different. We will collaborate together to define our Ironlands and the things that make it unique. And I think we have a very unique idea for our game. Before we begin, though our session tonight is pre-recorded, if you have suggestions or ideas for our game, please feel free to submit them into the chat while you watch. In future Ironsworn sessions, we will be live, and we want to encourage you to message us with ideas that might help push the narrative along. Ironsworn is a very narratively driven game, and when it comes to cooperative play like this, my motto is always, the best idea should win. So, for those of you who are familiar with Ironsworn, we'll be playing in a homebrewed version of the Ironlands. The show will work as follows. Much like a hex crawl, every week a different member of the Mayday group will join me as we tell the story of a tribe of Ironlanders that we're going to come up with tonight. At the start of each session, they can either create a new member of our tribe or will continue the story of one that already exists. Character creation, along with as much as possible in our game, will be randomly generated. So we're going to be coming up with stuff on the fly. We'll use the oracle mechanics of Ironsworn to figure out motivations and themes, things we come upon, and I have a few random book tables that we'll use. Book tables, table books, whatever. The story is going to unfold in front of us all as it happens live, and hopefully it's an epic story. So, as we begin, I want to read the basic premise that we have all here at Mayday kind of agreed upon to start with. Ironsworn is set in a harsh continent to the north called the Ironlands. Here, nomadic, disparate tribes known as Ironlanders live and survive. The geography varies from rocky islands to the south. It has a craggy coast. It has deep, dangerous woods. It has beautiful rolling highlands, a massive mountain range, and an inhospitable north known as the Shattered Wastes. But our Ironlands are a little different, and here's why. I'm going to read to you. Long ago, before anyone living can remember, a planet-wide storm blanketed the Earth and killed all life as we know it. Any living thing caught in the storm quickly rots and dies. Some speculate that the storm was a magical weapon that destroyed mankind, or maybe it is simply nature's wrath turned against us. The truth of the storm's origin has been lost to myth and legend amongst the remaining survivors who band together in the only habitable place left on Earth, the Eye of the Storm. The Eye is massive, over 20 miles in diameter, maybe even more if we decide that tonight. And the storm's walls are always visible far in the distance. The Eye is always moving and will change direction, albeit slowly, for unknown reasons. It takes the storm about 5 days to reveal an area and then pass through it. The storm never strays from the shores of the Ironlands, or at least the storm's eye never strays from the Ironlands, leading some to speculate that there is something within these lands that may hold the key to controlling and maybe even stopping the storm. While no living thing can survive within the storm, if the eye passes over a patch of land with dead things on it, they will spring back to life as if they have been held in some kind of magical torpor. This is how our tribe survives, by foraging, hunting, and exploring the ruins that are revealed to us by the storm. So, with that kind of basic premise set up, does anyone have any immediate thoughts about the storm or our tribe? Anything they want to get off their shoulders immediately about our lore? Don't all speak at once.
No, sorry, I'm writing.
So much information you just spewed at us.
Yes, yes, fair. That is a lot of information. You guys have a handout called Our Truth, so you can open it up and read along. But we have discussed kind of the basics of this storm, but the basic idea is that we are trapped within it, and we are surviving within it, trying to figure out what's going on.
So with this idea that we're sort of finding that dead life inside of the storm magically comes back to life, does that apply for the tribe as well? Have we lost people on the other side of the storm, and all of a sudden Grandpa's back 2 weeks later because we rolled over him?
That's a great question.
Is it up to us?
Of course, of course.
Yes.
That's the
man.
purpose of today's session.
I think,
Okay, but are we thinking like, is it like he died of natural causes in the eye of the storm, died while they were still in the eye of the storm, and then like we went back over it and he came back to life, or
No,
like he
but
was in the storm?
Perhaps
and
the
then-
body is preserved. So,
Okay.
Grandpa doesn't come back to life. You just get his slightly less stinking corpse.
if
Well, what
we-
about people who, let's say they got trapped in the storm, right? Let's say
Yeah.
you yeet someone into the great storm and then they come back. My question is, if there was a person who was alive when that storm happens, they're technically in a frozen state, right? So when their eye goes back over them, they would just be. But if you were dead, then
you're
you're
dead.
just a corpse.
Like if you're dead, you're dead. But if you're dead because of the storm, you can come back.
if
well,
you
that's
die in the
c-
storm, you die in real life. If you die before the storm, you can come back to life.
So the only
Okay.
place that you can really die is in the eye itself, and that's
Only
why.
die in the eye.
Well, because otherwise you just go what,
Ooh.
straight to stone?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe
Get
turn
caught
to
up in the
stone.
storm.
Like squish.
Maybe like something
Oh.
happens where you age very quickly, or maybe you just
Yeah.
kind of rot away. Like like if you're in the storm, you see the trees kind of withering and dying. But of course,
Yeah.
when that eye comes back over, everything kind of comes back to life magically.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause
I
you gotta
think it'd be really cool too if we had this concept of like no one really understands what happens to the person that comes back. Maybe they're not the same as they were before the storm, or maybe they feel like they're someone different entirely, even though they came back into this body. So
Right.
Yes.
maybe he was your grandpa last time, but now he's Richard Stevens and he wants nothing to do with you. Please stay away from my child.
Yes. Yes. Now, how new is this? I mean, if we existed before the storm did, and we have like a graveyard that's super far away from us because bodies smell bad. When the storm gets to the graveyard, is it a thriller situation?
I think the storm already happened. The storm,
Yeah, I
like, I think what was said was the storm has already existed. We were literally born and raised within the eye of the storm. That's how we were
Yeah,
raised.
I
So
think
Storm
to
predates
make
us.
because Ironsworn is so much like you're literally making things up as you go. It's a very improvisational game. I think it's best if we know as little as possible. So it's
Yeah.
definitely like it's been a few generations, Waterworld style. We've forgotten,
Yeah.
kind of what has happened.
We got no idea what's past those fog walls.
Yeah.
I think all that we do know is that as long as you're in the eye of the storm, you don't.
You're safe.
You're
yeah,
fine.
you're safe. You don't kind of fall into this magical stupor or torpor.
I do like the stone idea. Like, because I think they'd be very cool if we saw literally just a village of stones.
Yeah.
But
You know,
then-
Petrification.
going with the theme, what if everything else in the storm turns to iron?
To iron.
Yeah.
And that's why it's the
Ah, I see
Ironlands.
what you did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's.
These
I'm a fan.
ruins of
Okay.
civilization.
All right.
Okay. So
Then Grandpa becomes a critical resource.
Until Grandpa comes back to the eye, then he's
Yeah.
Grandpa again.
Yeah, you can't use the critical resource because if he's inside, he's not a critical resource. He's a flesh suit.
but is there a timeline to where you could turn Grandpa into a sword if you wanted to?
I
think
wonder-
so. I think there should be like a timeline. Like you could go in the storm for maybe 12 hours and survive, but like
And
anything
live.
longer, you'll petrify. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it'll just
You get
harder
lost.
to
You just
move.
get discombobulated,
Right.
and I hate to say it,
Yeah.
the further deeper you go,
There's got to be consequences though for going and staying in the
Yeah,
storm
yeah.
though for
I mean,
even
it
for a
has to
12-hour
get, like,
period.
For sure.
Change
Chunks
you
on you?
inherently.
Maybe like you age, but just more slowly. You know, like maybe it's
like
like,
space, like Interstellar. You come
Well,
back and
that's
you're like 80
more
years.
but like the opposite.
Yeah.
It's
So,
kind
like,
of
you're
like
in for a
that
year
game
and-
Last Stranding, where if the rain touched you, you would like age weirdly.
yeah.
Did anyone play that game?
Ooh.
Death Stranding.
Death
yeah.
Stranding,
Sounds
that's what it is.
terrible.
Oh, I
Just
like
that
that.
No.
Yeah, okay. So you're in the storm, and the storm doesn't want people to leave the storm. So once you're there, you start like slowing down, you start aging, and it
Yeah.
just makes it that much harder to come back. So you
and
can't go too
time
far.
could be like infinite for you in there for a little bit.
Well,
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Because
It
I
should-
mean, the only way a tribe would be able to survive is if the things that return to natural, like animals and stuff, like are able to come back to life. Because then you could hunt
Right.
them.
True.
You could, you could still survive off the land.
Because that was going to be one of my questions: is what is there to hunt at this
Yeah,
point?
yeah.
If
What if
Yeah,
the storm
that's-
is like an advanced life cycle, and that's why you age, faster than when you're in the eye? It's because life is moving, exponentially faster than it would in the eye.
So you almost view it as like inside the eye of the storm. It feels almost like you're traveling fast through time as opposed to like a storm.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like the storm is messing with time itself in that it's, rocks are going through the full rock cycle and eroding away within seconds, and people are going through the full life cycle of gaining age and then coming back
what
and
if
then
you're
being
just like
reborn.
dying all the
Like
time?
looping.
Yeah,
So
over and
the-
over.
The turning into iron
Ugh.
is death.
Yeah, is like the end of the life cycle or something like that. I'm not sure.
Well,
just a thought.
Here's what I'm thinking. It kind of has to be one of two of them, because
One of
you could
two,
do you could
absolutely.
you could do a lot with both ideas, because if it's the iron, imagine like, let's say you lose a brother in the storm, so you run in and you're only in there for a few hours. You find him, you pull him out, but
You
maybe
find
a
him.
detriment would be like your hand is now a big hunk of iron. You know what I mean? You're like the Lannister. You're like Jamie. You know what I mean? You have a big iron hand, or maybe a part of your face or something. But if it's time, then it's something like you come out and half of you is 60 years old or something.
Yeah,
You know? It's just
yeah.
kind of a
What
it's
if
more
it-
of a flavor thing.
Well,
Yes.
it's
Way
got to
more
be a
like-
punishment too, because we're not supposed to go willy nilly
Yes.
into any freaking storm.
We don't
So
want
I
to.
like the idea of like you actually slowly become more iron, because
What if
therefore
it's like that
it's
scene in The Incredibles when he's in The Incredibles and he taps
Well,
in and he like hacks the thing and all the like the globbies go and like stick to him?
Yeah.
What if it's like the storm is like liquid iron almost, and like
just-
you get like splatters of it
So
on you?
what if there's someone like in the tribe who is like the prophet of the storm, and he's like 90% iron,
Oh,
Iron
he's
Man.
just ahead.
Like, and that's
Or he's
like
got
a
like
religious
splotches on his
thing?
face or something?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's so weird that he'd be
Like whoever's-
alive, but yes, I
like
love it.
whoever's
Yeah.
saying
Thank you.
most,
I'm like what? This is weird.
Look,
but
this
what
is
if it's-
okay.
what if
fantasy.
he,
We can do whatever the fuck
what
we
if
want.
because he's like mostly iron though? What if he's like has to be carted around?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like
Got a
Ernie?
wheel.
Yeah.
On like a
I
sled
mean,
or something.
that could be like our hook for what we're starting the campaign off of, is like this old iron prophet gives this big message to the tribe that something's gonna change about the storm soon.
That's cool.
Just this old raving, iron crippled man.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So we're liking this idea of the Iron Storm. To kind of just throw a question out there, something that I think we should define as a tribe. What do we call the front and the back of the storm? Just as a boat has a bow and a stern, shouldn't the storm have parts or ways that we can delineate
Yeah.
it?
But I
Head
mean,
and feet.
The lid.
The lid.
The
So
lid.
what's the lid? Is that the top?
I think the lid is the top.
The lid
But,
is like
like,
the eye.
What's the behind?
are we talking like top as in above our heads or like in front of us?
Front?
But that's an arbitrary direction. How do we decide which way is front?
North. How's that?
Well, whichever way it's moving is the front. Like if
That's
it's going...
exactly whichever direction it's moving is the front, and a word like storm front or no. The
I like the weather terms.
the
Yeah.
tip and the pommel, like because we could make it like a sword. I don't want to call
Oh, I
something a
like
tip.
that.
Never mind.
Yeah. That's
I mean,
fair.
Just
Yeah.
for myself, because I
will-
know
What
all
about
that.
something
but it
iron
sounds-
related?
Iron related. I definitely like
think
the
of, like,
idea of the
compasses.
lid, like, you know, look lid side, and it means
God,
like
Look
look
lid
up.
side.
it sounds so ridiculous. I love it so much.
Yeah.
You want to do the lid in the socket?
The
No.
socket. No.
I mean the socket. I mean that's worse than tip.
It is. Look to the hole. Can't do that.
Sure.
Can't do that.
What about like
can.
the point or something?
The point.
What about like the lid? And
I'm
the
thinking of
cap?
like compasses or stuff. Like that's what I'm thinking
Right.
about right
Oh,
now.
like
I'm
the
thinking-
bezel.
Maybe we named it off of the status of one. You know, maybe the front is less active than the back, and then the back can be considered like the squall line because that's where the big thunder and lightning is coming from, or something
That
like
is
that.
going to be
so
like
that-
the more pervasive danger is us getting caught up in the back of it rather
Right.
than going out
exactly.
the front. So that
That's
would
the
make
thing
sense.
that's constantly coming for us,
Right.
right? So it
Yeah.
should have a more ominous,
the
you know,
Boom.
So
the chase.
I like squall side, storm side, dark side.
Dark side.
Please look up blacksmithing terms real quick.
Maybe
Okay,
something.
okay.
Yeah, side.
Okay.
White sky, black sky.
White side, black side.
Mm.
Well, I like sky. It was
Oh,
like
sky,
that, you know how like
sky.
the sky is like you have you ever seen like clouds when you could see where it's like really really dark to gray to almost like
Oh,
not
well,
quite
Or-
black but like
How about this? In weather terms, an anvil is the spreading out of strong winds at
Oh,
the upper
wow.
portion of a
Hell,
storm.
hell yes.
like
yeah,
that.
I'm
The
here for
lid
anvil.
and the
Yes.
anvil.
So the
Yeah, hell yeah.
the lid is the front, the anvil is the back.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And we're the
cool.
metal
Yeah.
in between. We're the iron in between.
So the lid side equals the front of the storm or the direction it's moving, and the anvil
Anvil.
side is the back of the storm. Okay, I love that. Cool.
Cool.
Cool, yes.
And I think everything above us is the eye. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we get weather in the eye, or is it just like is it like like the eye of a
Yeah.
hurricane where it's just sunny and like gentle, or do we get like rain
are there-
and shit?
Yeah. Do we have like rain and
like
snow
normal
and-
weather.
Or is it like Pleasanton and it's always like 78 degrees?
There's
and
something
sunny?
about
Pleasantville.
that, you know. I mean, it certainly makes it easier to. We don't have to worry about rolling on weather tables, but it would make sense though that there might be some extra random weather.
Or
Yeah,
does
I
it?
mean-
Yeah, it might depend on where the eye is sitting on the continent.
Yes.
Maybe
That's
there
true.
are still deserts, and we get that odd. Oh, we just stepped off of a mountain for the last 5 days. Now we're in Death Valley.
What if, like, not to get super abstract, but before the storm, what if like the weather dies outside of the storm?
Yeah.
So whatever the
Outside.
weather was when the storm happened is just kind of locked.
Oh, that's
And
I
then
cool.
like that a lot.
In there it happens, and then
Yeah.
we leave it.
So
goes
it's
away.
like it's not just life, like life that freezes. It's everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the state of whenever the magical nuke went off or whatever. The state that it was in at that time is what's locked into place.
I like that. Cool.
Yeah.
This kind of answered our question. Could one survive if they enter the storm but return to the eye before dying? What are the lasting effects of interacting with the storm? I think we've talked about you might, start growing iron on your body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please let
we-
us wheel around a guy on a gurney.
I
and-
mean, that it's canon so far.
I'm a fan.
Yeah.
So far,
The
it's
Iron
canon.
Prophet, man.
As like as the people in the storm. Sorry, as fuck. The storm. So the storm is happening. If you're in the storm, are you like conscious and cognizant of being in the storm and just existing in it, or do
I
you just
think
like
we
go
have
blank
to
until
be.
you go through the eye again and you're like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's some guaranteed insanity. But
Yeah.
Oh.
if you're not aware, or at least not totally aware, it allows for narrative situations where you guys might come upon, like a fort that was being, controlled, and they're just coming out of time, so they think that whatever was happening back then is still happening.
it's still happening.
So
That
it
makes
might
sense.
lead to a lot of Star Trek-like situations, kind of unique,
Yeah.
out of time things.
What if there was a way that the tribe devised, almost like a spacesuit, that like allowed somebody to probe like a certain distance
I love
past
that.
the wall.
I love
This
that.
opens
Yeah.
up so many possibilities.
For sure.
Because I was thinking about, like, if you guarantee iron coming a part of your skin, people are gonna try to like sort of like scarification or like tattoos. If you control where that substance goes, you could make iron like designs on your body.
Yeah.
I like the idea of like a storm proof, at least for a while.
Yeah.
I
Well,
have
you-
written
Like
an
storm
Iron
runners?
Age spacesuit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
it
Okay,
it
so-
opens us up to this idea of having like a force of people whose job it is to actually go out into the
A
storm and
storm force, if you
Storm
will.
runners.
oh yeah, storm
Oh,
runners.
storm runners. There you
Yeah.
go, storm
So,
runners,
so
chasers.
give me something concrete. How much actual time can you spend, or what are the rules with this Storm Force
I
suit?
mean,
What if
I
it's
guess-
like a perfect day, like an actual day cycle? You have a day to be out there.
That
and
seems
then-
long though.
That seems too long.
But think of
Maybe
it
more
this
like
way:
12
it's
hours.
heavy
Okay.
though, so if it's not like you can go very far. But if you needed to like keep watch or investigate something, you only have a day. And remember, it's gonna probably peel away and bit by bit by bit. And what it's doing is like it's not like you're gonna go. It just delays because the way I think it is, 12 hours without the suit, all that does is give you an extra 12 hours.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
that
it.
could be
Well,
good.
okay.
Like
I was
12 hours
thinking of
with the
the, like,
suit. Or 12
abstract-
extra hours with the suit. That makes sense.
I was thinking too of like the abstract weirdness of what if it was exactly a day? Like not even give or take a few minutes or anything, but from the second you step in to the second you step out, it's an arbitrary amount of time and no one understands why it's that much. But it's
So you're saying it's
Ooh.
cumulative? Like if you go in for 5 minutes, it's permanently on your record? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, or like it resets every time you go into the storm, but every
Oh.
time you walk in, it's for exactly that amount of time. And if
24
you don't
hours.
make it back,
Yeah.
you know, you're donezo.
Okay, so you're saying the suit though buys you that 24 hours.
Like 12
Otherwise,
hours without it,
you've got
12
roughly
hours
12.
extra.
And you're
Yeah.
really not coming out after 12 hours okay.
Yeah.
No, yeah,
Okay, so
you would
buys
definitely
you-
be.
Buys you an extra 12 hours. And what is it made of? What repels this storm?
What if it's just like so? I mean, I'm kind of imagining like the storm being like this. You know, instead of like a hailstorm, it's like these iron, like liquid iron balls almost that like are striking you and pooling up on your body. So like you almost have something like a Kevlar vest or something that's just like absorbing the impact, and you know, like you're getting more and more weighed down as you're walking through with like this protective thing over your body.
Yeah.
And
Alright.
then, you know, it just gets to a point where you know it's too much.
Within the Ironsworn lore, there is something called black iron, which is supposed to be like a very coveted kind of iron. I think it has magical. I think all iron has magical properties in the Ironlands, if we decide to go with that. But maybe there's a specific metal, or because Kevlar's pretty advanced, unless we could come up with something.
Yeah, but like we're talking like antiquity, the antiquity equivalent of like
chainmail.
Kevlar. Yeah.
So like a chainmail made of black iron, let's say. For some reason, this black iron seems to
Repel it a little.
repel it a little bit. Yeah.
Wait, I have
Yes,
a question that might kind of throw us off this entire idea.
Sure.
But so the Eye of the Storm is where everything comes back to life.
Yes.
But you can also have the iron stuck on you if you've been in the storm. So wouldn't, like, by that logic, wouldn't things that we roll over still be covered in iron? Like if we go in the storm
Well,
and we get covered in iron,
right.
by that logic, wouldn't everything that we roll over also be covered in iron?
Hmm.
Yeah, if we come back with iron,
Or
They-
could it be like
I
a
th-
choice thing? Like if you go in by choice?
No,
I
thing
think
is
you-
that it's
I think
not
we need to
keep it
guaranteed
clear.
that the storm is going to go over your body ever again. I mean, it might randomly travel in some other direction. It might be hundreds of years before it kind of passes that area again. So it's like, do you want to, live in a magical torpor for an indefinite amount of time, or do you want to risk your chances and like just have your arm be made of iron and continue?
No, I mean,
to live?
I get that. But like when we come back over things, there's supposed to be like useful resources to us,
Sure.
right? Like we're supposed to have trees and stuff. So, but like if they've been in the iron for so long, they're just iron now. Like what's to differentiate us from going in there from those things coming out of there? You know
I
what I
think
mean?
because they've completed the cycle and they've been covered in the iron.
Oh, the cycle. I forgot about the freaking cycle.
There's like a, it's like becoming a vampire or something. It could maybe be interrupted, but
Yeah.
once
Okay,
it's
okay,
complete,
okay.
you're always permanently a vampire. But well, again, once the eye comes over you, then it kind of washes off of you.
So you have to you have to fulfill the cycle to come back entirely.
Maybe it's like
No.
a religious thing that's become too, like the final season or whatever that they've entered, and this is a state that everyone refers to differentiate between us going out there and us dying out there. Oh, he's reached final season, and we're not going to see him again because he's full iron.
What if
or
it was
whatever
like?
is.
What if that was almost like a badge of honor? Like, like you're getting to the end of your life. Like it's considered honorable that you just kind of become one with whatever
Storm.
it is.
Right, so it's like a midsummer vibe where the old people just kind of march into the storm.
Yeah.
And, goodbye.
Or do they just
Coming
like
back.
sit and wait for the anvil to get them?
Maybe they just like stay like when you move camp they just like stick around.
Well,
Yeah.
That would be
Maybe-
interesting because if you ever did cross those old men again, they'd be who knows how old, and they would have interesting information. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's almost like you're setting up like a
Wait,
cat, like an
no.
information like
That doesn't make sense.
oh yeah,
time capsule.
Wait,
yeah.
hold on.
Interesting.
So it
They
becomes
tell the stories.
super important, like how they're positioned, because
Right.
there's like certain tribes that position themselves in different ways, and that's how you know. Amanda, I feel like you have
looks-
something for us.
I'm getting lost. That's why, because I'm trying to keep it very I want very clean rules, and we can bend, and like I know where you guys are going at. I just need to be very clear with how the storm works, and also how people respect the storm. Does that?
Yeah.
Because I like the idea of like when you're older, you're not really helping the tribe. Maybe there is like a way that it's like, okay, now I'm kind of done or something that way. But my question is, if everyone agrees that the storm's bad, you don't go in. So before everyone like goes like half cocked and all right, we're gonna create a bunch of fuck boys, because we will do that. We will create people who will go into the storm.
Yes.
Yeah.
The whole point is we don't,
Right.
as much as we. Does that make sense? So
Well,
the
I
storm
think
is.
it's just all about like survival, though. I mean,
Yeah,
you're talking about like.
Yeah,
I
I
think
you're
maybe
younger.
I think it's
maybe
clear. I think it's clear that nobody wants to just become a big iron statue, but we also recognize that what we're talking about right now is not everybody. We're talking about specifically the elderly who are
the
on the
sick,
verge of death, or the sick,
infirmed.
those who are not able to continue on with the tribes venturing. They might sit down. And we might in fact use them as some kind of information beacon. It's very interesting, that idea.
But if
And-
they're
and maybe
already
they're
dead,
also-
though, that's my question.
Well,
that's
they're
like
not dead.
They're
because
dying within the storm. So you can only the idea is you
But
can only
that's-
die in the eye of the storm. So like if you die, like if someone shanks you in the eye of the storm, you're dead. Like that's it. Even if
Okay.
the storm rolls back over you, it's done.
Yes.
But if you go into the storm, die in the storm,
Yeah,
and it
you're not
rolls back
actually
over
dying.
you, you kind of like come back a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. So
imagine
you're just in a
imagine just being
coma.
frozen in time is
Like
kind
So
of
it's
cryogenic
limbo.
stasis.
It's
Yes.
kind of
Yeah,
like
essentially,
limbo.
yeah.
And then
Okay, yeah,
eventually
yeah.
someone's going to wake you up and you're going to have 70 years you lost because that's how long it took before the
Oh,
storm
that's a
came back
horrible
around.
way to fucking die. You wouldn't want
But
that to your elders.
is.
They're gonna be lost in a weird ass
But
thing.
that's
like
the
it's-
weird science
if
we're
it's
trying
culturally
to
Well,
accomplish.
we
significant.
don't know
Yeah.
that they're like
Like-
necessarily conscious, so it'd be
Yeah.
like
Right.
it'd be like
we-
in Interstellar how the lady is in like cryogenic stasis for a while so they can pull her out and ask her questions and
And
We
it
eventually-
could-
also talked about the weirdness of what a person might be when the eye comes back around.
Sure.
Are they different people? Are they different, from when they went into it? Whatever it is. Maybe that's what we're trying to figure out is the research behind that.
So here's one thing I want to bring up because I think it will kind of shape what antagonists might show up. What if we have a very specific kind of burial ritual? Because, as we said, you can only truly die in the storm. But what if the storm passes over a dead thing, like a body in the ground? What if that has a different effect? What if the next time the eye passes over, it's a zombie or it's a skeleton or it's something supernatural as opposed to just a body?
Or like I'm almost thinking what's it called? It's made out of clay.
Fuck.
The
Golem.
golems.
A golem, yeah, almost
Okay.
like an iron golem.
Okay.
Well,
Pardon my French.
that seems like it would read as a bit of a judgment. Like if the storm comes back and you are just like a body, like just a human body versus being this other thing, that feels like if the storm passes over you again, then you did something to deserve becoming that thing.
Okay. I think
Maybe
that's
not
actually
everyone
kind
comes
of
back.
a cool rule as to only ghouls and zombies and things appear when the people that did something wrong died. You know, their spirit has still some unfinished business or something like that.
The storm won't let them go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah.
Even whether or not it's actually true, like that could just be something we think.
So I guess what
I-
I'm getting to is perhaps we have funeral pyres for the dead. Perhaps we don't bury the dead. Like we don't
Oh,
want
yeah.
to leave the
Want
dead
them.
behind.
Yes.
I wanted to give an alternative. I really like this idea too. I just want to throw this out and see what we think too. I was also thinking that there's a possibility that maybe the corpses are what become the actual iron. Because if we're thinking of these bodies that go out in torpor and then get stuck and everything, they come back and become real people again. What if the dead corpses are raw material and our antagonists are trying to harvest our dead? And so something is using us as
Oh.
material.
Like if we pack them a specific way, like we found a way to like put them in boxes or something, and then I mean not boxes necessarily specifically, but like
Something.
So
yeah.
You're just saying the next time we come around, it's not so much information that they might have. It's the dead bodies are literally made of iron that we can harvest.
Well, the people that actually died in the eye, I'm talking about. The ones that are really dead, not the ones that are going to come back.
Okay,
They become
Yes.
actual iron instead of going into torpor.
gotcha.
Then the
just
antagonist-
permanent iron.
Yes, and that's maybe where we get black iron too. And maybe the antagonists, the monsters beyond the storm, or the bad people on the other eye on the world or whatever, they're harvesting our dead, and we hate that. We want our people to rest. We want
Right.
them to return to iron, but they're eating our grandpas.
Or that's how we like keep our tribe with us, is like keeping them with us by like reusing them as resources within
Yeah.
the tribe.
I think both ideas are really cool though.
I
I'm split down the middle there.
Okay,
I
How
like
big is this tribe, by the way?
this you're
Nope.
saying what's the other tribe?
Like,
Us.
like what is the general?
I
Size.
think
Size of our tribe?
yes.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think maybe 100 people at the most.
Yeah, any
Yeah.
more than that, it seems like it would be hard to sustain.
Yeah, because we're talking like, you know, I did a little bit of research as to what the size of the eye of a normal storm is, like a normal hurricane, is about 21 to 40 miles in size. And I think for hex crawl purposes, it would be nice if it was about 20 to 21 miles in diameter, which is a lot of space, but also not enough to be easy. You know, I don't want to make it too easy where we just have miles and miles of open land.
Right.
So the interesting part of that point is that then there is infinitely more bodies than there will ever be a tribe. So maybe part of the goal is to allow those people that come back from the storm to die in the eye.
Sure.
Like when you come back from final season, somebody kills you in the eye so you can rest or whatever
Yeah.
it might be after we collect that information.
Oh, because we can't just keep bringing people back to travel with us. That would
Yeah.
just be unsustainable.
We don't have the size, yeah.
Or what if there are like specific elders or like leaders of the tribe
Seers,
who
yeah.
choose to like this, like I am a waypoint here. I will
Mm.
stay, like this is where I stay,
Mhm.
and then it goes over, and then whatever generation
Yeah.
comes back to
I
them,
do-
they're
Yeah,
like,
they're
here's
like
your
generational
history.
markers.
Uh-huh.
Right, yeah,
Yes.
like here's the
And
history,
you
here's what you
switch 'em
missed. and-
out.
I do
like,
really
they
like
just
the
kind of are
idea
all
of
over.
that, of almost like, you know, these recurring elders. And, you know, it's like, it almost reminds me of like Altered Carbon, where, you know, there's like, they keep like their, you know, their great-great-great-grandpa in like storage somewhere, and they'll pull them out for like birthdays and weddings and stuff, and then
Yeah.
they put them back in the servers, you know?
And it can be like a little marker of the year. You come by and it says, here lies so-and-so. This is where the tribe was. This is how we were doing. This is what happened during the time that we spent here in the eye.
That's very interesting.
And, you know, this is how we're telling our legacy.
That's
So
very cool.
if you turn into iron, if you are like voluntarily going into the storm for this like sleep, is there some sort of marking, some sort of like ceremonial thing with like the like low-key expiration date? So when you come back, people understand.
Yeah, it's
when
like
you
marked
left?
into the iron. Oh,
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay, so let's just define: is it that they're still alive, or is it that they are dead and we're leaving like a postmark?
That they're
so
still alive.
in my mind, that they're still alive. They come back, they tell their story, they tell you what happened in that year, and then you kill them.
Yes.
In
But
the eye.
remember,
Wait, why are we
the
killing them? What
information could
happened?
be false
you just
because
let
if
them-
you're in there, your brain's all scrambled. That's
But
the
I
thing.
thought
You
they
gotta be
weren't
careful
cognizant.
about.
But we didn't. We haven't established that though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we should stick with the magical realism of the fact that you just kind of come out of a limbo. You're not
Okay.
insane or anything like that. Maybe you
Okay.
are. Maybe we'll come across certain enemies that might have gone insane from it. But everyone, most people just kind of maintain their composure.
Like
Gotcha.
I was saying, we kill them because we can't sustain them, like we were talking about, because there's
No.
infinitely
But
more.
I mean, but
Like
what
they
if-
like their point is that they stay there. Like they
Yeah.
know that
yeah,
they can't
and then
come.
we
Like keep
switch
coming
them
with
out
us.
with someone from our year.
or you just let,
Oh.
or they just sit back down. I mean, maybe you could do that, or if you wanted to preserve the knowledge, you just let the storm roll back over them, and then if
Yeah,
it ever comes
yeah, I
back,
guess
Or
down
if they
that's
again,
committed a
too.
crime, possibly,
That's what-
that is your
Well,
punishment.
that's the next thing worth talking about for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
So before we go too ahead of ourselves, though, let me just make sure that we've kind of gone over some things. Let's kind of change pace here for a second. We've got a lot of good ideas stirring, but I want to talk specifically about our relationship with iron. So these are or were known as the Ironlands. We don't have to call them the Ironlands. Maybe they're called something else. In the book, they have 3 reasons why you might or why this continent might be known as the Ironlands. One is it's rich with iron ore. The second option is that it's a notoriously hostile place, and so if you live there, you have to be tough as iron to survive. And then the third option is that inscrutable metal pillars are found throughout the land. They are iron and gray, and no one knows their purpose. Do we care about any of these options? Do we want to kind of create our own iron lore?
I kind of like the idea that it's called the Ironlands because the storm is iron.
I also kind of like the pillars because that could go with our waypoints, our markers. Maybe
That's
we
true.
started mimicking the pillars centuries ago to try and see if that's going to solve something for us.
So
The idea
go ahead.
the idea of like an obelisk and then like 20 metal people around it
Around
is
it.
kind of
Oh.
badass.
Yeah.
Chills.
Sakia, you just want to draw that. But
I
yeah,
was gonna
like,
say, the art brain is
Yeah.
kicking in.
So we'll say that the Ironlands contain inscrutable metal pillars that are found throughout the land. We leave our elders or our chosen to stay there as generational beacons.
Oh, and they can like since they'll be like a part of it, and they have 12 hours. Maybe they can like in the iron once it's like on a solid specific part of their body, they can like etch the date into it within that like 12 hours, so they know like the last time that they were cognizant.
Oh,
So
is
if
that
we-
why the Man, we can't call him that, but the Iron Man is so full of iron. Maybe he had that job at one point.
Yeah.
That he
yeah,
was supposed to
And,
like stay there and like
runs
etch
in
it on
and
them.
runs out.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can define why he's like that.
Well, I think maybe he had a vision while he was in the storm and then ran, was originally supposed to be a waypoint, but came back and said, I have to tell you something. Or, the person that took them out there, he had some vision and we don't know fully if it's true or not, but he came back and gave us this prophecy.
So
Yes.
there's 2 kind of terms in this Ironsworn game. One is called swearing an iron vow, and the other one is to be Ironsworn. They're kind of obviously in connection. Who are the Ironsworn? Is it just anybody who swears an iron vow? Is it kind of like a defense force that we have? In the book Ironsworn, it says that when people of the Ironlands make an iron vow, they touch a piece of iron. And when they do that, they are kind of the iron connects them to the gods or the land, and it makes the vow more definite, more concrete. So that's kind of the explanation in the book. Well, what do we think about that?
I think maybe it's the people that go out there and become beacons, and maybe that's not the first thing you do. Maybe it's the last thing you do as an Ironsworn, but it's someone who's made the vow that eventually I will be a story of my people.
Very
Oh.
interesting.
There's room for a lot of sadness.
Yeah.
That's very good.
Also,
we do love our
because, like,
sadness.
think about what you're doing though. You're giving up the idea of eternal
death.
rest.
Yeah.
You know, of death. You're never going to die. You're just going to exist in this weird state of limbo for, ever basically.
But I suppose that there is a promise, and maybe it's an iron vow. One of your characters might take is that one day I might come across my great great grandpappy, and
I'll take his place.
I promise that I'll take his place, or I'll kill him, or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So swearing an iron vow, we like the idea that when you swear an iron vow, you take an iron sword or a coin or a piece of metal, and you make an oath holding it, so that it's like a definite thing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Do we cultivate iron for weapons or defenses? If so, how do we smelt iron if we're always on the move?
I think that maybe no iron, because the storm does funky shit to it out there.
But if we're collecting iron for resources,
Oh, you're right.
But
right.
inside
I mean,
the
what
eye,
if-
you need arrowheads.
Wait a minute.
and-
Hold on. A mobile. What are they called?
Forge.
This
Forge.
More-
a mobile forge.
Yeah,
More
That's
you
it,
can do-
every-
forge?
You can do a little pit forge and just
Yeah.
have the
Oh,
so
yeah.
the blacksmiths would have to be way ahead of the storm. and
Almost
it
on
would
a
suck
cart.
if you're wrong.
They
but you-
literally have a cart and they
You,
just.
yeah, and you would just or they could have something mobile where they would dig a pit in the ground and just forge from there.
I think that's relatively realistic. I wonder how hard iron is to, if it's an easy metal to heat, or if it takes.
Hold on. You got
It is.
Google.
The melting point of iron.
Yeah,
I
my.
don't know
So
off the top of my
forges
head.
are like 2,000 degrees, 2,000 to 3,000 degrees.
I mean, that's pretty damn hot.
Yeah.
But that's still like I can imagine having like a brick oven on wheels. That's
Sure.
A melting point of
a
iron
certain
is-
Thinking
size.
of like a forge that's built into a train or something, that we're like shoveling resources into both to follow the storm and
So
to
then the
cook.
question, I guess, is
28,
as well, if is the
100.
tribe always on, are they constantly moving, or do they move to like the cap?
Stay there
Well,
and then
we've-
move again.
yeah,
And then
We've kind of stated that because I did some very rough math, that if it's roughly 21 miles in diameter, then we'll say every 2 days it kind of traverses 5 or 6 miles. So the point is that I would imagine the majority of the tribe is in the middle of the storm, and then there will be people more towards the front. One of them being weathermen. There's got to be somebody shamanic in nature that is paying
Yeah.
attention to the storm and tracking what direction it goes.
I'd say
Oh, there's a couple
go
nerds doing that
way.
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forecasters.
Forecasters. I kind of like
Yeah.
that as a name.
Forecasters.
I have a little bit written about them because, let's see, what do we have here? So the eye of the storm is always on the move and changes directions without warning, and we'll talk about the mechanics of that within our game. But the weathermen, I think you might need one for every direction: north, south, east, and west, right? And they would have to be relatively close to the actual wall of the storm to kind of pay attention to tell whether it's moving towards them or away from them. So they might be very separated from the tribe, where they never really see the tribe, but they're in communication. Maybe someone is running back and forth between the main tribe and them, and they're telling them, "I think it's moving west. I think it's moving south."
Now
They can have
that's a good-
squires that do that, like I don't know, apprentices that would be the
Ooh,
the messengers between all the weathermen type thing.
or we Game of Thrones and we send ravens and birds.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ooh, that could be fun.
That's hardcore.
Is the storm
like that.
loud?
Yes, I would imagine it would be. Sure,
There's always like a
Like a roar.
Yeah.
there's always a rumble. So that was actually one of my
Always.
questions: is how might the tribe, what methods might they employ to quiet it down, to try to
I
get
mean,
a good night rest?
but
I think,
if you're immersed in it constantly, you're gonna get used to it, and it's gonna just kind of
Well,
become.
we're also going to be in a situation where a lot of us have tinnitus or
Maybe.
hard of
That's what
hearing.
I'm.
or
Yeah.
if it's
Especially
if
yeah,
you're what were you gonna say?
yeah.
maybe
Forecaster.
we are all fluent in sign, and there's a sort of
Ooh.
symbolic language between us that's through without sound in case the storm is too
Ne-
loud.
So everyone knows sign language. I love that.
But there's also this interesting aspect of if the storm is, like an iron hailstorm, it might also be clinking.
Clinking.
Like sometimes it's louder than others.
I think that there's some kind of noise, and I'm sure that it would be easy to like get some wool or something and stuff it in your ears, and maybe it helps a little bit. Certainly when you get closer to the storm. But yeah, I mean, there's a good chance that if there are weathermen and they hang out close to the storm, they might be completely deaf. And yeah, the only way to communicate is through writing or sign language or something.
Eli, what were you gonna say?
No, I was thinking like maybe even to the extent of like maybe chimes or like using animals and stuff like that as even like warnings, because like if certain members of the tribe are on the outskirts and they are being affected in ways of being like signed, the main core of the tribe is more towards the center of the storm, so they're more further away.
Yeah.
So you could use like maybe like canaries or something like that, like birds for like if the storm is getting too close or if it's changing, or even like chimes. I'm thinking of like Twister.
Yeah.
Where
yeah.
like where like that when a storm came and all of a sudden everything like weather mains and stuff just going off.
Yeah. Well, I love the idea of the birds too, because I mean, you could call them storm birds. I mean, they almost already exist. Yeah.
Okay, so let's define what are the. I mean, because you send a raven if the storm is heading north or something. You know what I mean? Or does one bird mean something? Do we have to have 4 birds? Does a weatherman have 4 birds with him, and he sends out the one specific to the direction?
I think it should be carrying like a stone marker or something like a specific color instead of like a bird.
Yeah, like birds in different sweaters, essentially.
Yeah, or like a ribbon tied on its foot or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you could just send black cats.
Let's go. Let's go with sweaters.
Okay.
Well,
But
Please.
like I would say like the guys who are like out scouting and stuff would use a specific type of bird, and maybe birds are being used differently and like inside the tribe, like more songbirds or something more vocal
Right.
would be something used in the tribe.
Yeah.
Where a hardier bird who can handle weather and stuff like that would be used for scouting and for message relays.
Like
I like
forecasters have ravens and everyone else has robins or
I'm sorry,
whatever.
all I can
like
think
the
about now is
idea-
birds and sweaters.
Of there being like a big, I don't know, like monument or whatever in the center of the tribe itself, where the birds come by and they drop things into it, like balls into ruts
It's a
and things.
mailbox. Yes.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
all symbolize different things that you could walk to the center of the tribe and go, oh, we're moving east. We'll be there in 2 days. You know, you can decipher what it is by what the crows drop.
If you really thought about it practically, it'd be like, okay, so we send off as many weathermen as we think it's probably intelligent to kind of, so that we can get as much data as possible, right? So let's say we have 2 weathermen send us a west stone, and then another weatherman sends us a west stone. The final one sends us a north stone. We can probably assume the storm is heading west, right? So we have these 4 different weathermen to constantly gauge where the storm is actually moving, and then we kind of make the decision to listen to them.
Yes. And that could be a huge problem if they all send in different stones.
Yes. Or if one of them goes crazy, or if one of them stops sending stones.
The
Yeah, if
day
we lose one
that
of
we
them.
receive no stone, everyone flips the fuck.
Like not a
Yeah.
single one from all 4 of the
my God.
weathermen.
All the
Yeah.
forecasters are like, or
Yes, because that could
or
be
we could have like a
something.
fail-safe
Up
of sending
the
2
guy.
forecasters to each direction, so that way like maybe that happened in the past, like one of the like they only had one forecaster at each direction at one point.
I feel like it should
And
be
then-
like I'm sorry, like
No, it's totally fine. And then like they learned like after that exact thing happened, they were like, nope, never mind. We got 2 forecasters for a fail-safe.
though I feel like it should be small bands of like a group of like maybe 3 to 4 traveling in one direction.
Right.
Because
Mhm.
then you can spread out once you get to a specific location, get a wider array of what it is.
And you also
they
got to
come
think
back
about,
together, send a stone
Yeah.
back.
Gotcha.
You also got to think about like you don't want to send somebody to live their whole life in isolation on the end of the storm because then they are
Also
going to
true.
go
It's
nuts.
pretty
Sure,
fucked up, yeah.
that is true. Okay, so we're saying that the weathermen are really more like a weather family of like 3 or 4 people that go north, south, east, and west, and
That's a lot.
they kind of track the storm.
Yeah,
That's it.
exactly.
Love a good found family of forecasters.
Weather family.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are they Ironsworn as well? Are we saying that these the forecasters are a part of the Ironsworn, and that's
I
sort
kind
of
of like the idea that there's something else. You know what I mean? It's like
There's something
it's like
else
you have
entirely.
priests,
Forecasters
you
have to be, like, special.
engineers, you
Yeah,
have
you
kings.
just can't.
Yeah, you have different things, different jobs.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I made a little note here that while the weathermen use, or the weather family use songbirds, I love that idea, maybe hunters use bigger birds like ravens and hawks and things like that. And obviously, taming these creatures would be an incredible commodity. I mean, having a hawk, you'd be like the toast of the town, because how rarely do you really have, animals that you have any kind of domestication over? We don't have cows and things like that, or maybe we do.
Point
Maybe-
of order: if you're a falcon and you're flying in the storm and you get ironed up, do you just drop, or are you up there?
Okay,
And-
that's what I was
How do you
thinking
drop?
about. Is maybe there are specific birds that can go in the storm, and those are storm birds. The others are
That's
specifically for the eye. And if you find a storm
So-
bird, you're the fucking dude. Like,
Well,
You
think
have
of it
like a
this
metal
way.
bird.
yeah, big
Could they
fucking Pokemon with
technically-
you, yeah.
They gotta
Could
be
they
like travel
technically
birds,
go
like a
above
ostrich or
the
something.
storm?
Oh, that's a good
How tall is
point.
the storm?
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
true. I worry that, like, realistically, the top of the storm would be pretty damn high up. Maybe they could.
That's
I don't know. Maybe
miles.
they could. Yeah, I would imagine
I'm
part
not
of
saying
the
it would be a
mythology.
Maybe that's how we
pigeon,
lose
but it
birds, we
would
just,
be
like,
a
yeet 'em
very
up.
important, like, rare bird that
mean-
could.
I feel like though a bird going into a storm like that is like not necessarily being used for like tracking or to
Yeah,
see, but
not
maybe
at all,
used for
no.
traversing. So like I would say like a bigger bird, like an ostrich or like an emu or something where you can like
Oh my
pack
God.
stuff with you.
Metal
Take it with
battle
you.
ostriches.
Yeah,
Big chocobos, yeah.
I,
yeah.
That
'Cause
is-
especially if we're
we
harvesting
are.
stuff or we're looking for things in the storm at the same time, we got to be able to bring it back. And you, as an individual, might not be able to carry it.
I
iron
sort of love the
birds.
poetry too of these animals who have actually seen the end of the storm, and we never have. And so the like agreed upon promise is that these are the only ones who actually know what happened on the other side here, and we'll never know the way they do.
okay,
The
so
power of making an ostrich like the icon
Yeah.
of the storm because they stick their heads in the dirt
Oh,
and can survive the storm. Like, powerful. I mean,
Yeah, that's
I
like
hate how much I love that.
that's like a compliment in the eye too. Is to be called an ostrich is someone who can't be affected by the storm. They
So
call
it's
the
like
old
how,
elders.
it's like how the Egyptians worshipped cats. We're gonna
Yeah.
we're gonna
Yeah.
worship
We're
ostriches.
worshiping
Ostriches.
birds.
Oh, I hate them.
Birds.
holy
so
ostriches.
all right. So yes, I
Holy
think we do
emu.
need to remember that the storm needs to be scary and formidable, and there
Yeah.
shouldn't be a bunch of things that just like. I would not send my hawk into the storm. Like,
No.
yes,
No,
there's one
no.
magical or one magical storm bird that can do it, and we're deciding it's an ostrich. But that's
It's-
fine.
It's like a legend type thing.
But like
You-
beast
Yeah,
of
like-
burden. I
Yeah,
would
maybe we
consider.
haven't seen an ostrich ever. It's just like
It's
There's
just
fucking
in-
ostrich.
Yeah.
Ostrich out there, and people can like
Survive.
swear that it's like the chicken in Orange Is the New Black.
New
that
Black,
one
I
person has
knew it.
sworn that they've seen it. And no
I
one
swear
has
I've seen an ostrich.
And everybody talks about it like it's a dragon. Like it's
Ostriches are
terrifying.
dragons.
Yeah, ostriches are dragons.
So to kind of finish our idea originally about the iron and how we smelt it and stuff. Okay, so we have a
Alright.
mobile forge. That's great. The question is, I'd imagine it takes a little bit of effort and time to get iron like out of the ground. I mean, if it's plentiful in the Ironlands, that's one thing. But like we have, I almost feel like scavenging is more of something that we might do. Like if you come upon an ancient battlefield or something like that, and there's just swords, we'd probably take those and reforge them or something like that. So I don't know how often we might actually be in a mine, forging.
Yeah,
those.
especially
It
when you
doesn't seem
consider that
plausible.
we're nomadic. We don't have time to learn trades like that if we're moving every 2 days. So it makes sense we're living off these past generations that come back every time we roll over them.
Like the Mandalorians collecting Beskar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a part of the Ironsworn too, is before you take your final season, you're the ones that go out into the storm to collect these goods, bring them back to the eye.
I think as much as possible, we should refrain from the idea of going into the storm. Like, literally, I think just the Ironsworn go into the
Yeah.
storm because...
I
unless
agree.
unless your friend is lost in the storm and you want to break protocol and go in, but I think as much as possible, like people need to survive within the eye.
Yeah.
What if, because we're thinking like a storm, there's like residue. So we can have iron, maybe just not like big thick slabs of it, but it's like almost like pebbles.
Like
So it's like
nuggets.
over time you can collect them, and especially if you're like, I'm gonna go ahead and do this oath, you are supposed to assemble, and you're not ready until you get as much of that as possible. So you're gonna scavenge better than everybody to get every little bit of iron, so you can go ahead and make your suit.
Or like if you stay at the lid of the if you stay at the lid of the eye, like you can start like you can find it quicker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can definitely probably find it quicker,
Or
especially
like bigger
Rite.
chunks.
Like
Yeah.
gold digging.
Is there
That's right.
would there be a way to sort of like, if I had something like a net made of like flux or something that I could stick into the storm to attract iron and then take out, and there would be iron there?
interesting.
That feels
Like a because I mean iron is magnetic.
magnetic.
So you
Why
can
don't you
have
just use
a,
magnetic?
We
you can,
also
well, that's what flux it means.
we were
but-
saying that
Yeah,
we
you're right.
turn,
Sorry.
we
Public
turn
school.
iron in the storm, right? Does that go the
Yes.
same for everything we put in the storm?
Yeah, I think anything that is in the storm is petrified
So-
to iron.
Could
So
chuck
maybe
something
we
in.
got, people chucking shit into the storm.
They're like fishing with magnets.
yes.
Oh.
That
And
feels like
or-
that should be something like maybe 2 people can do.
Yeah.
So let
Yeah.
me ask you this: how in an iron age can you magnetize something? Is it just a matter of rubbing it against the right thing, or?
have no
I'd have
idea.
to look it up.
Okay,
Uh,
all right.
Um,
Well,
Basically-
I like that idea, especially since iron is magnetic or can be.
Or since we're going with the idea that you become iron when you go in, and then when you come out, like you unironed essentially.
Yeah.
If you've gone through the cycle, what if like there are like iron catchers? So like when you come across something that's been ironed for so long, they like and you're like at the lid of the eye, or not. I guess it's the lid of the storm technically. Anyway, but if you're at the front of the eye, and then you like catch the iron as it sloughs off things
Yeah,
to like bring it back as a resource.
it makes
Yes.
sense that there might be just like particulates of iron, still around that you could collect. Yeah.
So there's a dude with a bucket running around old guys, viciously scrubbing iron.
I mean,
off of them.
basically, like you're just like a catcher. Like
This
you have
might be a
little
little
bucket.
morbid too, but maybe we burn off some of the iron from the folks who come back with like
Yeah.
iron clubbed arms.
That's messed
Yeah.
up. I just
Ooh.
also want to say
chop his
catcher in
arm
the
off.
eye.
'Cause I don't know how much he's
Cut
going to
him
want to
as a
lug that thing around all
True.
the time. If you have an iron forearm, you're not going to keep that. You're going to be ripped on one arm. They're going to lop you off at the elbow. You keep the arm.
I mean, it is kind of like a savings account.
Yeah.
Or you can just use it,
It
like
is-
it can be
it
like a
is the
formidable
weirdest
weapon.
savings account.
You got people who are poor in the tribe running out there.
They're just
going
trying to
full
keep-
iron, coming back.
Okay,
No, we're not.
That's something that the forecasters. I feel like the forecasters, because they're out there and there's at this point like 16 of them. They could just like watch, like protect people from running into the storm.
Sure.
Like
as well,
lifeguards.
yeah.
Yeah.
Lifeguards, yes.
We'll
Because
call
there's always those
All the
idiots.
I
forecasters.
also don't want us to be poor. I want us to be a
I
Yeah,
think,
I
I think
yeah.
everyone should be like it should be a
Everyone
communal
is
kind
well
of thing.
taken
I mean,
care of.
Yeah.
think of the people, the free people of the North in Game of Thrones. They were all kind
Yeah.
of equal. They had a king, and we could define whether we want that or not. But yeah, I mean, everyone's just surviving together. So I don't think there would be many hierarchies or anything like that.
Fuck
Nah,
no,
they
we
would
don't
kill
need that
some
shit
before
It
they
should be
decided
like
to
a-
like, I'm in charge now.
Shut
It
the
should
fuck
be a
up.
trade system like we were talking about with the forecaster. I'm especially good at this.
Yeah.
And so I rely on everyone else for the stuff I can't do.
So
Right.
so let's talk a little bit about some
Yeah.
of our kind of historic legacies. I guess we've kind of already defined this, but how much of our past have we forgotten? How much have we held on to despite all odds? And that leads me to a next question. What kind of arts have survived during the storm? What myths and legends and prophecies might exist? Do you think there'd be instruments amongst us? Do you think we could fabricate
Yes.
instruments?
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
Have
For
iron.
sure we
I
have.
think
Yes, the-
storytelling and sort of campfire nomadic storytelling has come back in a big way. I mean, that's how we started as humans to begin with. And
Yeah.
like the things you tell around the fireplace are sacred because you learn them from a waypoint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
We-
there's. Go ahead, Kia.
Oh, we have not to be warp on main, but we would need a lot of textiles.
Yes.
Like, 'cause it's
Not
very,
to be warp
like-
on me.
It's a lot of weather happening. We would need them. Looms are pretty easy to set up and take down. You could literally just pick up one and run.
There you go.
Somewhat,
a lot
yeah.
of tapestries.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would we call
Right.
that? Weaving and what? Just textiles?
Yeah.
I mean, are we
Weaving?
talking like for religious purposes? Like
No,
weaving
I mean just to
tapestries or
survive,
for
you would need to
clothing?
create
Yeah.
clothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's like there's
Leatherwork.
weaving, which is going to take a long time, and then
Yeah.
there's like pelts, which is a lot quicker.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, can we tan things though? Because like I feel like
We're
does
moving?
tanning take a lot? Because we
I
move
mean,
so
I'm almost
much.
imagining
takes
like
the
I'm
the
imagining they
sun,
have
right?
carts. Well, my
I
understanding.
think they're scavengers.
It
Yeah.
would take time to tan something.
Yeah,
Tanning
but
takes a
I
lot
mean,
of time.
right.
But I mean, I
You
guess
could-
so
I
does
like the
forging.
idea-
So
For...
Of a, I feel like I can't. You can tan leather in urine, right? That's a thing. Let me
Maybe.
double check.
I'm not doing
I
that.
don't know. You're the one that would know that among
In
us,
this
so I don't know why
game-
you're asking
I'm
all our
not
dumb
answering the
asses.
In
question.
this game, we can.
Okay, so
if we
Sky's the
decide
limit.
it's true.
We've said that there's definitely music, definitely storytelling, weaving, sewing, textiles. I mean, I would imagine any kind of physical accomplishments, juggling, and maybe sports is a big deal.
Oh,
You know, there would certainly be that competitive side to us in a kind of community way. You know,
It builds
play
the
soccer.
community by like making us stronger.
soccer.
Yeah.
Play
Okay.
soccer.
The having a soccer like game based on sort of like a microcosm of the storm.
Of the
Like
storm
a-
itself.
Yeah. I
Okay,
think that would be kind
keep
of cool.
talking, keep talking.
So,
would
but
you-
what if the ball was like metal, and so that you
We
didn't
would
just
die.
constantly stub your toe, you had
Maybe-
to like wear metal shoes.
Maybe the
then
ball.
it's
That makes us
represent
move
the-
slower, and we don't want to move slower. when we're in the
Yeah,
eye of
but
the
like
storm.
you have to fight through the heaviness.
Maybe
be a
the
pretty-
ball represents the eye, and the players are the storm.
Oh, yes, because that would be really good. I feel like feeling weak by the storm, like this force that we can't tame, having
Now we
people
get to
pretend to
be
be the
powerful.
storm,
Yeah.
that would be important.
So then, would the
Ah.
rule of the game is that if somebody kicks the ball out of the circle, like you lose a point, or you don't get a point, or
Maybe
how do
it's like keep it up. Like the whole idea of the eye in itself is survival. So maybe if the ball ever slows down to a complete stop on your team's side, then you lose, or something like that. Like
Point of order: is the ball really a chicken?
No.
just
We're not
kicking a
very-
chicken around.
As a
I don't
rule-
want to kick a chicken. I'm not saying we
As-
kick the chicken. I'm saying the chicken is a metaphor for us. And
We
our
have
job,
to catch the chicken.
our job
Okay.
is to herd the chicken.
So
as the
it's a
storm.
so the idea is what, 2 teams? Is everyone on their own team, and the point is whoever catches the chicken first?
I mean,
I don't know, Zach. You're alone in this one. I think.
I want
Explain
it
to us
be-
how this
simpler.
works.
We are all the storm. It's the team versus the chicken.
Okay, so the point is that before dinner every night, we put a chicken in the big circle.
And beat the shit out of it.
Chase it.
The message behind that, because the message behind that game then is that eventually the storm
storm's gonna kill
always wins.
Jeez.
We don't get the
Terrible.
chicken.
That's a
Well,
terrible
we
game.
can
The
elaborate.
melodramatic.
Yeah, we can elaborate on the rules of catch the chicken,
Oh
but
my
I like the intent there.
We'll suspend the chicken game.
So let's.
How about a rugby type game? We just
I
take
think rugby
something
might.
to an end goal.
But the point of order with that is if the storm is always moving, and if we are moving with the storm, where does a person's side start and end? Where is
I don't know.
midfield?
It's not- I
And
don't
where
think
is
it's moving
your goal
that
and where is
fast.
my
Maybe
goal?
Set
we
the goals
establish waypoints that act as
Create.
goals. In the same way that we have the obelisks, they come into the game as well. You know, maybe players are obelisks
That's
and
a
then
long
we play around
game.
them. or-
That's a long ass game.
Well, no,
It's
I
a
don't mean
soccer
I don't
field,
mean
guys.
the actual waypoints. I mean we have.
Oh, the people like goalies represent waypoints.
Yes,
essentially.
yes, yes.
Oh.
To take the not the
Fascinating.
actual way. We're not playing
That's like
across
rough.
15 days. Like,
That's what we're like. what?
Well, if this does imply some sort of like marching order, and that could be our way of measuring.
Mm.
Like if we're playing a game from the like closest forecaster to the weavers or something, then that's like no, not a mile. That's insane. But something like that.
Yeah.
There is definitely like portions of the eye that are not allowed for anyone playing a game, being a child.
Sure.
You have to be
Yeah.
There is a portion within the eye that says you cannot be past this point unless someone has told you you're allowed to.
Sure.
For sure.
So you mean like an inner like diameter as like a safety buffer?
Exactly. Like maybe
Yeah.
we put obelisks. Well, we're moving constantly, so we can't have anything in the ground. But
I mean,
we
I
have
kind of like
pointers.
Yeah,
that
I
say,
kind of like
"Don't
the
go here."
so if everybody is like traveling in like a line, like a sort of a train, like this train snaking across the landscape. You have
Yeah.
a perimeter at the front, and a perimeter at the back, and unless you're authorized for some reason, you can't go beyond those perimeters.
Exactly.
Yeah, like
that's
forecasters can go,
That's
and
a
that's-
constantly moving mark.
Well, it's kind of a solar system, right? Because we're
Yeah.
all we're orbiting around each other and we're moving as a system together. So you could like hover in your little like pathway, and you could go closer. I imagine anyone can always go closer, but you can't go farther, like Caleb said.
Yeah, there's going to be people like hunters and gatherers and stuff that have the job of kind of spreading out a little bit and seeing
Right.
what has the eye, revealed to us, in this day.
Yeah.
So kind of staying in this world a little bit, but maybe doing a little bit of world building. Are there any myths or legends or prophecies
Get outta
that
here.
exist? I mean, do we have a prophecy that one day someone might stop the storm, or is that just we don't even
Yes.
I'd
bother
love
trying
that.
to-
I mean, I guess that depends on
Yes.
how many generate. Because if they've been in there for 4 or 5 generations, they're not going to know anything else. Like that wouldn't be like not having a storm wouldn't be like a concept. to them.
Well,
But what if
I
that's
like
like the
the
myth? What
yeah,
if the myth
the-
is that like there is a world without a storm and it did exist?
Well,
Freaking
what if it's like
eons ago.
if the storm ends, it's Judgment Day, like that's the end. Gehenna comes as soon as the storm ends.
there could be like battling belief systems, maybe? Like
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
there's
Find
like
something
Yeah.
in the storm.
See, that's
Oh.
Eli's point to me is why I think that we know that there's something else because we keep coming upon ruins and we keep coming upon people that were frozen in time at that point and
Yeah.
have joined our tribe now. So I think that there is a little bit of knowledge that we have, but it's very pieced together and very unsure still.
Maybe there's a mythology that if the Ironsworn could just go farther, they'd find the other side. Like, the only reason we're stuck in the storm is because we can only go 12 hours without dying, or whatever it might be. And, like, there are tales of people who are like, well, I think so-and-so saw the end of the storm. They saw the world on the other side. And that if you get to there, the grass is greener. There's
But then
no
would that be like a
storm to
position,
live.
like if the storm is positioned in a certain place and you can
Yeah.
get to the outer diameter, then you can get out and be outside of the pathway like forever?
Yeah, possibly.
yeah,
Yeah.
like what if the people that who are like the Ironsworn and who are like the landmarks, if they're not in the storm,
They're trying to figure that out.
right? Like they're like the storm is the
They're
buffer,
positioning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's-
and like they can
theoretically,
be like, hey, I saw the outside.
theoretically, if the storm was close to the coast and you could somehow swim or ride a boat out far enough, the storm would not continue out into the ocean. It would move back
Yeah.
inland, and you would
But
be
I
free.
do really enjoy this idea of they're like leaving people around almost as like GPS markers so that they can try to triangulate when and where they can exit.
And maybe there's a specific point on the GPSs that maybe someone said, I saw it. I fucking saw it. There's
If
an
you
elder
go-
who said they
If
saw
at
it.
this position you go this direction, you all put on these like suits and you go this direction, you're gonna be able to get out and stay out for
At
good.
this exact time,
Yeah.
at this exact place, at this exact location, you're gonna find it. And we're just hoping for the day we find that GPS.
So if we're building on this special place being like a coastal thing, if we've all we know is traveling on land, having people that are like obsessed with
You're
boats
carrying
is
around, like,
so
you're
stupid
what if they're-
and a waste of time.
What if they're like hauling an ark around with them, just waiting for the day that they can go?
Yes, like you are the crazy person on the street in New York talking about the world is going to end because you have a
So
boat.
they're just
in the
hauling,
grass.
like on wheels. They're hauling this massive boat around, just waiting for when they get the chance to
So,
leave.
So
we're
this-
on like a big land arc.
Yeah.
So what it sounds like to me is that there's maybe a cult or a sect of the tribe that, as like sort of penance or like a religious angle, they carry like a longboat or something like that with them, and they're crazy. They're the doomsayers. They're the whatever, but they believe that what will save us all is when we get to the coast, we jump on this boat.
But I mean, I think we were talking about it more in like this is more of like a long-term societal goal is to mathematically pin down where like when the storm hits this location, and that's why they're leaving people around is so that they can over a period of time, build up that knowledge and figure out what position the storm needs to be and then what pathway they take to all, make a societal mass exit and, usher in kind of like a new age of existing outside of the storm. But that might take, decades. That might take generations and generations and generations.
But I do like that group goal. I do think that's a great goal.
Yeah, I like the dueling idea too. Of some people believe the waypoints are to remember our past, and then some people believe they're to triangulate our future. And so we're stuck in the present trying to figure out which is which. Because maybe we don't know when we started leaving people.
Yeah.
And so the original intent isn't anywhere, and so we're there to interpret.
Yeah.
So is there like a map maker person that tries to like keep a record of these people without just like kind of starting from scratch? Because we, like you said, we don't know. And they like
so
are
there's
trying
almost
to...
like and it could be like I get what you're saying about having two sects, but you could have like a religious sect where they have people that are devoted to keeping track of that information.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the Iron Prophet, is he thinks he saw it, and now he's trying to triangulate where he was. And so he leads a church of people that are cartographers that are trying to find the point that the prophet saw.
Oh, that could be a thing. Like the cartographers are like, this is like how we get to the future. Stop that.
Who was on a compass tip earlier?
Somebody. I think it was Eli.
Yes. Then we could bring that back.
We have like cartographers and historians, and historians are like
pathfinders, cartographers.
This church of cartographers, I mean, they would have to have a certain level of education to be able to do this stuff. Maybe they are also the teachers and so there's like an education component where they make sure people understand, the knowledge is passed on.
Or it could be like the two schools of like the cartographers are the ones like we're gonna get off, like we're gonna get out of here, and this is how, and here's all the math for it. And then there's the historians who are like, this is our past, this is what we have to remember, and like it's like the two.
So it's like the goal is still there, but they just have like this split. Like you're either keeping track of the past or you're focused on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd like to introduce a third sect that just wants more iron and doesn't really give a fuck. Like what the bodies say at all.
I mean, care less about the fucking waypoints.
True.
That would actually
sure
be very
funny.
funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
They just don't give a shit.
I mean, there might be folks that are just like, look, the only option is survive. So the stronger we are, the better we'll survive, and all of this record-keeping bullshit is just a waste of time.
And maybe,
who are they? I would imagine they're relatively militaristic or something.
Yeah. They're probably our defense force and the people who oversee the manufacturing.
So now we're almost.
Maybe?
It sounds like we're almost getting. What's that book that there's like the Divergent? I think it was
Divergent,
called.
Where
like
you're
the different
from different
factions
schools.
that they're dedicated to different parts of the city.
Maybe that makes up our political system too. You're either from the cartographers, the forecasters, or the I don't give a shit group. And then those three.
I like that.
The Ironmongers. I fucking love that.
The Ironmongers.
Cartographers.
The cartographers, the historians, and ironmongers.
Forecasters.
Forecasters are the ones up on the outside.
On the outside. Okay.
And they form like the three people that run our council, and that switches out every time we switch out waypoints.
So it's almost like there's towns. Like these schools of thought are divided into like towns.
Yeah.
And they have representation on like a shared governmental structure.
Okay,
but we all like work together to survive.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's
like
just
you can disagree,
schools
but
of
you can.
belief.
Yeah.
So we're on the subject of community. Let's talk about it a little bit. We'll get back to the specific things we're talking about, but what values do we hold dear? Do we just want to kind of say that we're this Iron Age Viking-like hunter-gatherer society, where there's not really an economy, there's not really any trade, it's all kind of like bartering?
Well, I mean, there would have to be some sort of an internal economy.
Not necessarily.
I like the idea of what we were talking about earlier, the trade economy of I can do this very well.
Yeah.
You can do that very well. We're going to scratch each other's back,
Yeah, like as long as everyone is doing their job, it's chill. And then if you're not, then we can sort of move into like a court system or like crime and things like that.
I also like the idea of like, Finland does rotational service. Once you're out of high school, you have to go into government
like 2
service in
years,
some
yeah.
way. I think maybe if we had some form of that, like as a member of the Eye, you have to do one job with one of the tribes before you're allowed to pick your vocation.
That's a good question. I assume we don't want like your kids do what you do? Like, is there a chance for you to figure out where you're at? Like, if you're a cartographer, but your parent is an ironmonger?
There's like a sorting
I think
hat
so.
system.
I really want to avoid the idea that, you know, one particular town resents
Right.
the other for who
Well,
they are.
Yeah.
we don't want
Yeah.
to set up like we don't want to inadvertently set up like a caste system. I think.
Yeah,
Yes.
So you want
exactly.
people to move
Completely
around.
agree.
So I think we should consider creating a rite of passage of some kind. Like it's like a you want to be a whatever. Maybe you want to be a hunter or something. Well, you've got to go catch your first doe or something. You know.
Mhm.
Yes. There's there's a thing in LARP called
Okay.
A Flight of the Sparrow for elves where you like go off into the woods for like 2 days and you pretty much figure out where you're going to be depending on how you help the group survive. That's a very like Bones interpretation of it,
Okay.
but something like that.
So
We'll
like
have-
you
we'll
go
have
out.
rites of passage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on what your job is, maybe a rite of passage is you got to make your first iron sword or whatever. Depending on what you want to do for your job. We talked about the recently deceased. We decided that we do, in fact, leave them for the storm because they will turn into black iron that we use at a later
Harvest.
time, right?
Somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what does the tribe call itself? Are we the Eye of the Storm, or are we something else? Any names immediately come to
Maybe
mind?
it should be something based on like this, triad, like social or quadrants, depending on if we count the forecasters as like maybe it's something to do with like that, like 3 heads or four parts or something.
The triumvirate.
I feel like the council could be called the triumvirate.
Yeah,
Since
they
they're
like
like
that. For
they're the
triumvirate,
leaders
I
of
like
each
that.
of our.
I think the continent is called the Eye. I think we are something different. Like we
Like
live
the land
in
we're on
the
is the
Eye.
eye.
Yeah.
Where the iris.
We're the iris. We're the what are the different parts of an eye?
The
We've got a
cornea,
Cornea. Yeah. Thank you.
the rods and cones.
The rods and cones.
There
We're
you
the
go.
rods and
Yeah, we're the
cones.
little rods and cones running around.
We're the lids. There you
Okay,
go.
but can that be the
The lid's the
metaphor
front
for
of the
birds and the
stone.
bees?
The rods and the
Yes,
cones.
the rod and the cone. The
rods
rods and
and
the
the
cones.
cones.
I mean, that would actually
Absolutely.
work
But
better
that
than
I
implies
hate
that
that.
that implies that they have some knowledge of medical science, but I like that very much.
Yeah.
Who's to say?
We can come
Well-
back to the name of our tribe, but I like the
I mean,
idea.
We'll see
Yeah,
on that.
I was also thinking maybe we could do alternatives for like the Eye of the Storm because I know they call that a cyclone, and
Ooh.
there are a couple different names for them.
Your body like a cyclone.
Same.
Oh
Same.
well, Cyclone's gone. Sorry, Beth.
Look, you ruined Shody. I'm here to ruin Cyclone.
Oh no.
So let's go over again some of the jobs or functions that members of the tribe can serve. We mentioned obviously hunters. We mentioned the forecasters. Who else?
We need
Medics. You need people in medicine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cartographers.
We have the cartographers, and
Historians.
we have the historians, and we have
the
the
ironmongers.
ironmongers.
Scavengers. We need people cooking. We need people weaving.
You need people building stuff. Like, let's be honest, if we're having carts and we're like, you're gonna need people who have
Someone's
at
gonna
least.
have to
repair.
maintain that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We need like a midwife, at least
Yeah,
one.
who's watching the children?
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Are we
Watching
using
kids.
cars or horses pulling our shit?
Oh, what kind of
Yeah.
animals do we have?
Where
Are we
we
using
hacking? I
animals
was
or do we
imagining-
create stuff like
I had this
combustible?
weird idea of it being like manpower, where there's like people at the front hauling it and people at the back pushing it.
Like big palanquins?
Yeah.
We're holding the
Like-
whole.
That's what we
community
carry
on
around
our
the profit.
shoulders.
But I mean, not like they're like they have like you have like a long train that has like your forge and
We're
maybe,
like the
homes and
Amish, like we're building barns in 0.5 seconds and then just
pulling them
hauling
up
it
and
away.
moving them.
and-
Yeah, I mean, I think everything would have to be mobile. So like we'd be
Yeah.
staying in like leather huts and just very very rudimentary things.
Right, because we're not far in technology. It's not like we're working with steam or anything like
No,
that. Right?
I think we should stay with the Stone Age, Iron Age kind of aesthetic.
I mean, you
Okay.
could get pretty complex tents that like fold to like a military backpack, not like a school backpack, but it would
Yeah.
be, all
Yeah,
carry
but
our
like I think it
whole
would make
home on our
more.
back.
It just seems to me that it would make a lot more sense for them to have something that they can just be like instead of having to like, okay, now I'm going to set it up, and then I'm going to sleep, and then I'm going to pack it up, and then I'm going to move. It makes more sense for something. Okay, this is something that we can kind of constantly be moving. It doesn't
We throw
necessarily
wheels
require you
on.
to tear it down and pull it
That's a
back
good
up
point.
because that they'd have to be doing that constantly. So it makes sense to me that they'd have some way to just okay, I'm going to push it.
Like a
But you got to
bandwagon?
think of like everything they're wearing, everything that's around them, weapons, all that. Where'd that come from?
So we
Oh, they
do
make-
have smiths.
Yeah, we have
Or
smiths.
a smith.
Yeah, we have like we
Like
do
2 or
have people
3.
to make
Yeah,
things.
there'd be carpenters, guys who know how to
Yeah.
work wood.
Right.
There would obviously have to be people whose job is solely to fix the carts and the things that we're using to keep them operational.
What if
We have to
were
have
like,
some kind of pack animal, but just because
Yeah.
it seemed in a tribe of 100 people, we've already got a ton of jobs that we have to do, and having people who also pulled things.
You're right. That would be a
seems-
big drain.
maybe we
Yeah,
use
like a
like
big-
oxen?
Yeah, I think it's realistic
Oxen
that we
and-
would have collected over the generations horses and cattle, and you breed them.
sustainably.
Yeah.
What about
Yeah.
the idea that like you guys know how like a trebuchet is those big moving buildings you use for
Mhm.
siege? What if we were like a big land flotilla, like
Almost
our
like
whole
yeah. Have you ever
Bunch
sat
of
on
Trojan
a
horses.
platform that moved? Yeah, like
Yeah.
a big Trojan horse almost,
or
something-
like a Helenopolis or something? Or a
I
How
don't
does
know
that
what
work
that
with
is,
terrain,
but
though?
hell
Tower.
yeah.
That's a good point. The terrain's a really good point.
Yeah,
If we're
yeah.
traveling everywhere. Most nomadic tribes are on horses and
horses,
are
yeah.
very minimalistic.
I think we could break it up to where it's like 70% of the population just walks everywhere. Then we have horses and cattle, and maybe the last percentage is like those carts and things that we use. I think most people though would probably be on foot.
Yeah.
But
We would
I don't know-
need. No, sorry. I'm just thinking of we would need either sheep or like a lot of rabbits, or
Something
like a
quick.
mobile. Yes,
I
I'm
vote
trying to
sheep.
think. Okay, cool.
I
Goats.
I
mean,
bet
then you
we
have,
have-
a source of fiber.
Okay.
We've got to have like an emergency movement plan too. Like the city always sits in the same way. Your building is exactly where it is on the map, and then if we have to move quick, you're going to go and do the same exact thing in the same exact place every time we move every 2 days.
Now, I was thinking if there's instead just one large tent, and now I'm thinking of Bug's Life, where the main character had like something that like went over him as he walked, but just like magnified and added like 6 more people. Like they're
Like a big carnival top.
low key, but their costume is this thing that's like built into the point where they are physically pillars holding a tent, and they hold their position and carry the tent with them. And if they wanted to just like take off their backpack, then there is the tent, but they can also
Oh.
put it on. And walk
Maybe
in
that's part
formation.
of the community. Is some people's jobs is sorry, bud, but you're a pillar this time.
That's a
And
shitty
so, like,
job.
You
Yeah,
run
yeah.
it like you have to
Two.
like run into like the hut and like hoist it up on your shoulders
Yeah.
and carry and then set it down.
Yeah,
And
then
it
once
can be
we
like
get there-
disconnected for when we go to different types of land, so that it doesn't just like that you're not like a big
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
just hexagon that's like, how do I go up this
I-
fucking mountain?
I love
know
the
what-
imagery of that though.
You know what's gonna suck is eventually this eye is going to be centered on like directly a lake.
Oh,
and we've
shit,
got to figure
yeah.
out how to
How
float
would you
for
deal
a
with
couple
that?
days.
The cartographers are going to be living the day that we get to the lake.
You're like, fuck yes, here we
We
go.
did it.
Here's our giant boat.
And, yeah, and theoretically, if the cartographers have kept good notes, if the storm is moving in a direction that maybe we've been before, it's like, oh boy, I hope it
prepared.
moves this way because this will be revealed or whatever.
Right.
Okay,
And so they tell us what to prepare for in those 2 days from now. 2
Hmm.
days from now, we got to
Would
be a boat,
Makes
people.
sense. Yes.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
so what unique laws exist? I think an obvious unique law would be you don't enter the storm, or you don't leave
Right.
the tribe unless
Yeah.
told to.
Rule number 1: we don't talk about Fight Club.
I think like building zoning, like zoning laws and everything are extremely rigid. You want to bring in a new tent, you want to put up a new business, you want to do any of that, well, we're gonna fucking figure
Because
it out 5 times from Sunday.
Right, which makes sense because they'd have to have very detailed plans about the motion. So, and introducing like another,
Yeah.
piece into that would be hell.
Yeah. So like a really strict homeowners association.
Gotcha. So zoning laws are rigid.
Yeah.
I mean, I would imagine most things like theft and murder are frowned upon.
It's super shitty.
Yeah.
And if you do that,
Hell
are you put in
yes.
front of the triumvirate? Is there a specific council?
really-
Thrown into the storm.
Yeah, I like the idea of a catapult that or a trebuchet that flings people into the
Bye.
So bad.
Yeet.
I have
we
a little
kill
bit
you
more of a
first.
practical but crueler way if we can do this, which is
Okay.
basically we put a big iron rod in between, break their ankles, and then just let them try
Oh,
to
that's
crawl away
terrible.
from the storm.
But why
as we
can't
walk
you
away.
not have my storm cannon?
I told you. It's a little bit.
Oh.
It's not as complicated as a catapult, but it sends a message.
No, it's
I
an
feel
iron
It's
root.
very brutal.
It's
Yeah.
an
Did you
iron
say
root.
that was like human, more humane, or inhumane?
No,
No, it's like that's like I would say that's for like their.
But
you
God, like
did
no one,
something.
like,
Justice.
can you imagine if you're like, you see a guy get his like legs broken and you
Yeah.
have to be sucked up, like you're never gonna do shit. You're not gonna
But
do
that-
anything
that
after
seems.
seeing
I
that.
don't want to have
can't.
our
quite
our
brutal. It's
community
quite
based
brutal.
off of like fear. That
Right,
seems
right.
like that's not a way
Think
to
of
start
it
a
this
community.
way: it's to deter. Okay, so if you got limited resources, you have 100 people, and that means you're still probably growing. There's children,
But,
I'm
like,
assuming, with this
And
tribe and all
Allegra,
that.
what you have to take into account is not everybody is as good as you.
Well,
Well,
here's
no.
what we can have our
Like-
cake and eat it too. I think that certain leaders would choose this method, this cruel method, and other leaders might say, you know what, we're just going to cast you out.
Yeah.
You're going to go out, and if you survive, good for you, but don't get anywhere near us anymore.
I
you know?
think that's
Outcasts,
like my
yeah.
case would be if we murdered a whole family for something.
Yeah,
like I'm
vi-
talking
maybe
like
violent
murder,
crimes.
What if
SVU
we-
crimes, like fuck you. At that point,
What if we did like a Game of Thrones? Like, if you're bad enough, you get made to make an oath.
Hmm.
And if you did a big enough crime, you are going to be a waypoint whether you like it or not, buddy.
it's either you do
Congratulations.
this.
Or you're
or
the
you
one
do
that has
that.
to go like put on.
You
the,
have to go switch out with an elder, and the elder gets to come back and live with us.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
like,
okay, so you're like on a
or-
list then if you
Yeah.
fuck
Yeah.
up bad enough.
Yeah, it's like,
But-
oh, it's Johnny's turn.
An
Should've
Is it-
stole.
alternate with that would be is like, okay, you did something really bad. You're the Suicide Squad that has to pull on the suit and go to the storm.
Yeah, you're an Ironsworn. You're involuntarily made to take the oath.
So
That's cool. Okay.
yeah.
So let me understand it a
Ironwood.
little bit better. So if you commit a crime, I mean, I think, look,
There's got to be a scale.
Well, yeah,
Oh,
there has
yeah.
to be a scale, and I think also like I'm sure there's a big thing that if somebody murders somebody else's wife, that I mean, simple justice is just the other dude's going to come and kill him and cut him down, and that's the end of that. But if it's something more like
What if
theft,
the wife
or,
has an affair with a guy? Does that guy have the right to kill the guy who has the affair?
gets a
Do you
little
see what I'm talking about? It can
complicated,
get
Well-
sloppy really quickly, so we got to be very clear with the rules.
Maybe for some of it, it's frontier justice.
yes,
And for crimes that go against the tribe, that's something that gets brought before the council.
Yes.
They deem judgment.
I also feel like I was thinking while you guys were talking about fantasy contraception, and I feel like we have it because we
Because
only
you
are
can't-
100 people.
You can't be adding. You have to keep that population size
Right.
down.
Yeah.
Thank you,
You-
because there's also
you have
another
to,
thing
like-
we don't want to talk about because it's called the number. Like, there's only a certain amount of people left.
I think we just encourage that everyone keeps it together.
Well,
And
it's
that's-
like the zoning laws. You have to apply to have a child.
So then,
And if
but what
we
happens
deign
if what
That
happens
we
if
can
someone
support it, then yes.
And then
What
That's
happens
why
if
all the
someone gets
gays
in-
are super chill. Is
Sure,
because
they
they're
don't have
like,
to worry
hey, you
about
can
it.
bone,
super
but
gay.
it doesn't matter because you can't have kids.
I might even go so far as to
Very
say that the
important.
tribe probably promotes a more homosexual lifestyle because it
fucking
it
yes.
allows
Gay.
You
for
gotta
The
limit the number of-
straights are weird.
Yeah.
Damn
yes,
straights.
okay, and then Amanda,
breeders.
that if a man cheats or like if there's some sort of affair and it results in a child, that's way worse than you just
Yes.
creeping, Like, who's gonna take care of this kid?
It's another resource. It's another mouth to feed.
Yes. And so I think the parent, because the child has no choice, the parent is like given the ultimate punishment and the child is accepted into the tribe.
No,
Yeah,
And
they
then
take
maybe
the
there's
spot.
a
the
word for
kid
being
shouldn't
an
grow up
orphan.
without its parent just because.
Well, no, but
then-
maybe
but,
it
like,
goes
you
into
think
like a
about-
system we've put up.
But think about it though, because
Yeah.
these people are so that would be like the worst crime you could commit is to tax the resources of this tribe further. So having an unplanned child would be like the worst crime that you could commit.
Because
So it
Maybe
would make
that's
sense
the
that, like,
worst,
okay,
but like
well,
you
the
know,
kid's
the
gonna
people
take
who
your
have to
place
carry
now.
everything,
Yeah. But
they're
that's
now
gonna
the
put a
pack
whole
mules.
guilt
like
complex
if you
on that
do
kid.
stuff
Yeah,
like
I
that,
think-
you get the less
I think
desirable
there
jobs.
is a balance where, having a kid is not going to destroy the entire fragile ecosystem, but, there is a reality that the eye might enter a place where there were people who were in a torpor for a long time. Do we adopt them into the tribe? Do we kill them all? Do we leave them there? I mean, that's a challenge, and I think that there should be a little bit of leeway where we could adopt new people as old people die.
I think it would
Yeah.
come into like how useful are you?
Sure.
That's
Like-
what I'm saying. Is it needs to come down to like
I know, Allegra, it sucks, but you gotta
No.
think about
You're
the
put
realities
down.
of
But
the
what if
situation.
instead of that, no?
Number one, are you straight? Number 2, can you cook? Number 3, can you fight? And we go through these questions. And if you answer correctly, then you can hang.
Plus,
What if we
Leg,
have, like-
some of this has to be bad if we're
I
ever gonna
know.
have.
I
Yes,
want to make a
story.
lovely, happy, perfect,
It's got-
beautiful
but, like,
society
it
of
would
everyone that's
suck.
kind and
But
good.
Allegra, it would suck.
But
This
it's
I
society
know.
would fuck.
Allegra,
I know.
we just became the 100. We're the 100.
We're exactly that.
people. Oh no.
Yeah,
Just
and
this-
this is where you're gonna get your trauma when you're playing the character,
Right.
because otherwise you're gonna have no fun.
I'm gonna let you guys decide this then, because I'm just gonna advocate for a perfect, happy society where everyone is loved.
I do think that it depending on the size, because if it's like less than 20, I'm sure we can accommodate and do something. But if we came across like of another 100 bunch
sure,
of people,
Sure.
now we're
No, we
into a
fight 'em.
territory
Yeah.
of,
We're fighting.
and also
Well,
we don't know
that's-
what their response to us would be.
Sure.
Yeah,
And there,
or who they
Allegra,
are. Like,
part of the fun of Ironsworn is that there's nothing stopping your first character being the current leader of the tribe, and you could dictate whatever you want the tribe to
That is
do, and
very true.
so there's room for that. So let's keep moving. So we talked
Sounds like
about
a dick move. I've created all these rules in this session 0, and now
It just
I'm
took
the
one
leader, and fuck
torture
you.
tactic
I'm
for me
trying to
just
give you what you
fuck
want.
it all up.
And then just
it'll be great
the
because
game.
then every episode becomes the next person undoing what the last person. It's just real politics at this point,
Oh,
where we're
fuck.
just no you.
Side stack of executive orders.
I'm the president now.
So let's move on to our leaders. How do we govern ourselves? It sounds like we've decided there are,
What did we call it?
The
triumvirate.
The triumvirate.
Triumvirate.
yeah.
Shiny boys.
But I
council.
also think there should be checks and balances in place for that. Like there should be something that backs up in case we have 3 assholes
But
running the
like,
tribe.
in an Iron Age society, would there be checks and balances?
I guess that's
If it's Athens, yeah. But otherwise,
I mean,
I think
know what?
we can adopt
totally
whatever we
agree.
want.
I was gonna say, I feel like there's a lot of places that had their shit tight that just weren't writing shit down.
Let's consider best case scenario that these people all said, look, all that we have are each other. So we have to come up with something that everybody feels is relatively fair. We have these different factions that kind of do things. We're going to take one leader or one person from each of these factions, and they kind of make the major decisions for the tribe. But these leaders have to kind of present these ideas to the tribe, and if the tribe thinks this is suicide or it's a crazy idea, then they have to face the tribe and the
Right.
repercussions of that.
So we have a majority veto that goes at the tribe level. If the tribe represents 51% do not want this to happen, or whatever percentage, it doesn't have to be 51%. But if we decide the council's fucking nuts, we go with what the tribe says instead of them.
But remember, there are people who are going to be loyal to the council regardless. So it's
100, yeah.
you'll have like a definite.
But we want
Powder
that,
keg.
That's
right?
politics,
because
baby.
that makes
So-
the game more exciting when we're
Yes.
playing it.
Now,
Yeah.
how does the Iron Prophet
So-
fit into all of this? Is he part of one of those factions? Is he his own
he
thing that
pissed
they
somebody
wheel
off.
out
I
every
think-
once in a while?
I think maybe
just
he's
like
the counselor for the cartographers. And
Yeah.
maybe he's been there for fucking forever, and everybody's like, when
He's
this
the
guy
guy-
gonna die?
he's
Mitch
the guy
McConnell.
with the boat.
But he's not
the man with the
necessarily
boat.
like the guy that goes to the
No.
triumvirate. He's just kind of
No, he's like like an advisor or
Like a
someone that you
religious
go and
leader.
talk to. It's like, oh, we
I
gotta
mean,
go
you could
talk to this
think
guy.
Think about
Like
the
the high holy man.
impracticality of rolling him to the council every
Yeah.
week.
And maybe he's considered like a pope or an apostle or something like that. Like you go to
Yeah.
him in a religious crisis when it comes to being a cartographer, but he's not one making a decision.
He
Zakiya,
could
I
be
think
one of the original people if you think, or like the oldest survive, like current, like the longest, like the legacy. Like I hate to say it.
What if like
So
the
he could be-
iron? What if like being mostly composed of the iron like preserved him somehow? Like his, like his heart is beating slower.
Oh,
or
that's not where I was
something,
going.
Wait, where were you going, Amanda?
He's just old. He's from
I just
old
think
Yeah,
he's
he's
the
old.
oldest one there. Like you could say like his grandpa that he obviously remembers was around before the storm. So or maybe he's the closest person to know what life was pre the storm or something like that. That's why, or at least because he's like, because I feel like if he's old enough, you would give him the respect that he deserves because he does know a lot. But at the end of the day, you're like, this is
Yeah, and there's a lot of
a couple
respect.
tacos short of a platter, but still.
And there's a lot of respect in him claiming to be the one that saw the edge of the storm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's obviously something very interesting about the fact that he's almost entirely iron and yet is still alive.
Yeah,
There's
he's
something
That
still
could
magical
be-
there.
There's something there.
Yeah,
He's
it's
blessed
like
by
He
the
has
ostrich.
something.
it's almost like the guy, like the guy in Fallout 4. You're the main character in Fallout 4. You wake up 200 years later. And,
Why
all of
isn't
a sudden
he?
you're this relic? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And-
go ahead.
I like the idea of people trying to figure out why he's like that. Why didn't he enter final season? Is that because he found the end of the storm? Is that because of all these ideas? And so it becomes a religious sort of research amongst the cartographers to find out why this old guy's still kicking.
I think there's a weird, because water is like this weird, like, not enemy of the storm, but like a gate to getting out of it for the cartographers. There's a real like boy in the iceberg potential for him being the way that he is, regardless of if that's true. But we could like say he like froze almost to death or something.
Gotcha. Here's another question that maybe we can't answer, but it's worth bringing up. Is there a secret that the leadership knows that most members of the tribe do not? Is there some kind of hidden thing that
Well,
only the top brass know?
The obvious thing to me here is like either they know, they're the only ones that know, hey, there's a potential for us getting out of this place if we can just figure out where, when and where we need to go, or they disseminate that information to everybody else to keep them going, but they know like insiders that's not true. We just made that up to keep
yeah.
people in line.
the
I
like
prophecy,
that.
The village.
the
Is
prophecy
false.
is kind of propagated by the leaders.
I was thinking maybe they're hiding a greater evil in the storm too. Maybe something's chasing us and they don't have the heart to tell us.
Yeah,
Like there's a
I
big
think they
monster.
might know that there are horrors lurking in the storm that sometimes trickle out, and we've managed to keep them at bay. But the hunters, the folks that are always at the edge of the storm, are the first to see it.
Yeah,
What
and
if-
maybe they go spontaneously missing when someone comes back and claims they saw something, because they're trying to keep us away,
Yeah.
away from doom and gloom in the society.
So what, they just like somebody comes back, oh, you know too much, put a
Bam!
arrow in their head. Yeah.
Possibly.
All of a
What
sudden,
if-
they're left crawling.
Another reason why forecasters are not necessarily always coming back to the tribe. They always stay away because they
Exactly.
see things.
What if there's an instance where the storm just once enough to make it where we don't know if it's going to happen again? If the eye shrinks
Shrinks.
one time
Whoa.
and we don't know why, and it doesn't keep
Yeah.
happening, but we like, if people know, they're gonna think the eye is shrinking and they're gonna start freaking out and buying toilet
Yeah.
paper.
Then it becomes,
So-
I love that. You know why I love that? Because then our whole Ironsworn game becomes a climate change metaphor.
Yep.
Which
So,
becomes-
so Zakiya, maybe part of the myths and legends is that at one time the eye was bigger, and
Yeah.
we theorize it might be getting smaller over time.
Oh, I like that.
and they're keeping
Yeah,
that
and what
information
if
from.
there's someone that comes out of torpor that was here when the storm was bigger, and they come back and they're like, "Hey, this is small gang," and that freaks everybody out because
Right.
you shouldn't say shit like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and they just think like they don't know that that's a problem.
Any other thoughts on this? What is
I just really enjoy that concept of
Yeah.
it. Grab
Of it
over,
shrinking?
like,
Oh, it's
yeah.
awesome.
what is the political climate right now? It sounds like we've kind of established that these three factions have a kind of peace. They're all doing something useful, but it sounds like we were implying the Ironmongers might be a little bit more militaristic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like you have, like the Ironmongers, and then there's the Cartographers, and then there's the
Forecasters.
Forecaster. Well, but then it sounds like the Forecasters are more like a special group that hangs
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, the
That's more like a
Forecasters are just
job
hanging out.
than it is a...
Well, then who is representing the? Because our cartographers are representing what, the future. Who's representative of our keeping the past alive?
So to make it
Storm?
clear, the cartographers are their ultimate goal is to escape the storm. That's why they're
Yeah.
following it. The historians want to preserve our records. They want to preserve our history, and then the Ironmongers just want to put all resources into surviving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think maybe there's sort of a right brain, left brain to the cartographers and the historians.
Yeah.
Maybe the historians are where we get our art, and the cartographers are where we get our sciences
Science
and
and math,
manufacturing.
Yeah.
And
Kind
we'll
of
say that
like
the
knowledge and wisdom.
And we'll say that the tribe is mostly happy with the leadership. As you know, we'll start at a kind of a neutral point where there's not, there's a sort of peace in the tribe.
I do like the idea, though, that there's some mystery around the council where people generally enjoy that they keep us safe and that they make these big decisions, but everyone knows there's some things that maybe they don't tell us the whole story on, or we don't know exactly what happens in the room.
I like that too. Let's move on to a different subject. Let's talk about the defense. We talked about the forecasters. They're a major defense of learning. What defenses can be employed by a nomadic tribe from, let's say, scavengers? Let's say that there are a group of people that were frozen in iron. When they come out, they're really aggressive. I guess we have weapons, but there wouldn't really be we wouldn't have fortresses. We wouldn't have big things to defend us.
No.
Yeah.
I feel
Or am
like
I
it would be
wrong?
more like a cavalry guard at the very least, or and then just regular ass on foot guards
Yeah.
in the tribe.
What about
Like different rings of guards. Like the forecasters are kind of like the first line of defense,
Yeah.
and then there's the cavalry, and then around the center
Oh
there's
god,
like the
so the
foot soldiers.
forecasters are almost like Navy SEALs in
Yeah.
like training.
Forecasters have a hard job.
Yeah.
Very
Really
Yeah,
hard
forecasters are
job.
like rangers. They're just out on their own doing their own shit.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I think the Ironsworn would be our main line of offense in terms of militarization. They're the ones that, if we have to, if nothing else can be done, they're the ones that go out into the storm. And, it's like you're calling in SEAL Team 6.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
N-
Go ahead, Zakia.
I was thinking of just like if the eye moves and we have people that are iron and we're waiting for them to thaw, do we put like mines around them just in case? So when they do thaw, we're like, be cool or else. And then if they're not cool,
That seems like a
Then-
lot of work.
mines.
I think that for the purpose of survival,
cool.
we have to say that magically things come back to life pretty quickly. Like, I would say within an
Yeah.
hour, anything that was alive when the storm hit comes back
know,
to life.
We've talked about like this Viking mentality a lot, and if that's true and we want to go with that Viking mentality, the attitude would be there's these people we're coming across, we don't know who they are, they have valuable resources, you get in there, you slaughter them, you take their stuff, and you move on.
I will
That's
need
rough.
this
I know,
for this
That is
question.
one
That's true.
approach.
But history. I know.
This brings
I
us
will
kind of to the
refrain.
next subject, which is our religion. Within the Ironsworn book, there's three options that they give you that we can build upon, which is are our views on religion that Ironlanders just mumble prayers out of habit, but most believe the gods have abandoned us? Is prayer comforting and religions are in fact practiced? And or C, are the gods very present, plentiful, and powerful?
I like the idea that. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I like the idea that like the cartographers, the historians, and the ironmongers all come from different places on like a religious kind of spectrum. Like the cartographers are like the future is what will preserve us. So like we're moving toward the future. Like the future is almost its own god. And then the historians are like our past is what preserves us. So like the ancestors and like the ancestry of the tribe and like the old beliefs of the
So
tribe
then
are
that
like
makes
really
me
alive
wonder,
within
though.
them. And then the ironmongers are like the earth is what gives us. Like
Mm.
they all kind of like have like different levels.
Yeah.
and that's where the
Iron is
religiosity.
everything.
That makes
of
me
everyone
that's an
comes from.
interesting concept, because then it's almost like you have the cartographers are worshiping, science and the future
Yes.
as like a
Right,
god.
exactly.
And then you have the historians, which are almost looking at like past historical figures from
Mhm.
the world before, and
that's what
revering
I was
them as
thinking,
gods, almost like an
is that
Alexander the Great type.
For
of situation.
historians, maybe there's this belief that our dead become gods, that the waypoints, the people that we keep out in the storm, are a part of the central religion and are like the direct speaking voice to
Like
God,
low
or-
key oracles of Delphi.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that
Go.
that kind of centers everything from like heaven, earth, not hell, but down there. The ironmongers are earth focused.
Yes.
Right.
They're sort of goth-esque, or at least metalheads. Okay. And then the cartographers are like God is change in
Science.
in the air, future.
Yeah.
Knowledge.
Yes. And then
God
the
is above us.
historians are
Below.
The
like
ancestors
under.
are like soul, right? The historians
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
worship the ancestors, and that's kind of a soul component. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And
So
I
maybe
mean,
they're-
it's sort of like there are like Asian cultures where sometimes they'll dig up their dead and bring them out and actually bring them into the center of the community, and everyone throws a party for their dead and redresses
Mhm.
them and hugs them and loves them and leaves them gifts and then interns them again. That's what I'm thinking for our historians, is like it's a celebration because you're speaking to God, because this is who came before.
Right.
And so,
Hmm.
yeah, exactly what we're going for there.
Is there any religion around the storm? I mean, certainly if ancient man would look at the sun and think that might be a god, certainly an all-encompassing storm would be some kind of
Maybe
deity.
what if they
Like
think
Maybe
it's
for the
like,
kind of?
ironmongers.
but what if they
Yeah.
think it's more of like a consequence than a god?
Like the
hey,
imposement?
we fucked up, and this is why this happened to us.
Oh,
I like the idea of a curse, or the storm is a consequence of something.
that's our
done.
rapture.
Yes.
Or like
I-
or like Eli was saying with the. You should say it. You said it. You should say the words.
I was saying that the ironmongers would be more connected with the storm, or
Yeah.
with that stuff, and maybe even more of a zealous kind of
Yeah.
attachment to it, since iron is what the storm creates.
Hmm.
Therefore, making items out of iron to defend the tribe and stuff like that is the most like honorable goal for an ironmonger to achieve.
Like the
and
storm
they're
takes from us,
obsessed
but
with
we
it.
give back. Like we take from it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is for the ironmongers, is the storm an extension of the divine, or the divine itself?
Well, I think while other places see it as a curse or residual consequence to something, they see it as a gift that was given to them.
Yeah.
This is our
It
lot
gives
in
them a
life,
source of
yeah.
power. Yeah,
'Cause
this is
when
what
you-
we are supposed to do.
Yeah.
We get
When you
iron to
think about
survive,
it,
and yeah.
Like
it is
the,
what it is.
the ironmongers must think the storm gave them the eye. Like there has to be a reason why they're protecting us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and obviously
Fair.
to attempt to leave the storm would be blasphemous, or a
Exactly.
terrible
Yes.
idea. Cool. So let's move on from religion. You go to mysticism. Do we A, call upon mystics to divine fortune or perform rituals? B, magic is rare and dangerous? Or C, magic courses through this land and even common folks know a ritual or two? I think it would be nice to kind of live in that middle ground where magic is rare, but
But it's there.
someone could learn it. There are probably people who could divine things. Unless
wanna
you guys
say,
feel
like,
different.
I want to say like are the boys that are out on the edges
The
of it. The
forecasters, yeah.
forecasters are the ones that might have some residual mysticism attached to it, and especially our guy who's covered in iron. He should have some type of mysticism attached to it, so that we relate iron to being a source of like power on multiple levels. You know,
So
It's a-
interestingly enough, in Ironsworn, iron is like a magical thing. It can repel the Fae. It can repel certain magical creatures. So yeah, I like the idea that there's something magical about iron.
So it's almost like the people who have more exposure to the iron collect some of that residual power.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would make sense for the forecast.
There was a belief that if you put like the ashes of your ancestors into a blade while you're making it, that the blade would be stronger. So is that kind of what's happening here? In that, like, more like the
black
black
iron.
iron?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If
whatever
you
we were
Yeah,
talking
forge
yeah.
a
about?
sword made of black iron, it might contain the soul of an ancestor or something.
And
Or
that
like-
would
so
like
like-
give it a +1
Yeah,
situation.
yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
black iron, it comes from like the dead you leave behind, and then later
Yeah.
come across again.
Yeah.
We should put in some mythology too for the idea of people holding black iron that comes from their legacy. Like if you could find some black iron that is of your blood, it's even more powerful in your hands, and you're
Interesting.
Yes,
destined to
yes,
have
yes, yes.
Let me.
Or
let
like
me-
families are
Magnetic
carrying
pull.
a weapon
Yeah.
that they've had for generations.
And
Yeah,
that's-
I love that. I love that.
So if you leave a body, leaving someone into the storm, the markings that get left on, I think every group has a marking. So like the
like a
people that
family
would
crest.
that would keep track of your blood, that's historian shit. But
Mhm.
like where you are and when you are, that's cartographer shit. And then
So we have to
ironmongers
overlap.
wanna like think about, because they if they want to turn your body into something, they want to remember what kind of person you were, because they don't want like shitty black iron. So they're gonna put something about your character on you.
Yeah,
So when
Oh
you
my
come,
god, that's brutal. So they're like branding you
with, who
like
you
your
were.
Or
sins.
tattoos.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
Fuck yeah.
love the
But-
idea too of like if we were to find an ancestor, the person alive in the tribe is the one who has first say on what happens with that iron. Not the
Yes.
council, not anyone else. This is Greg's buddy. Greg's gonna do it,
Go get
goddammit.
Greg.
It's my boy, and I'll make him into the sword myself.
Exactly.
Now, question. Now,
Yes.
question for the LGBT ones, that it, because if they don't have children or something left behind, they can, if they want to, probably inscribe
Yeah.
who of that lineage.
Yeah,
Be like,
yeah.
Like
Oh,
they're their
yes.
own families without like
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so
Perhaps,
you can
like,
create
family
like
doesn't
your
have
own
to be
family
blood.
crest or something like that.
Your
that,
squad.
that
Your
that
homies.
says.
It
yeah,
should be
families
very
and blood
easy.
families, whatever you build.
Yeah, it should be very
Yeah.
easy in the community to make someone a part of your ancestry.
Yeah,
Like
Right.
as long as both parties are consenting, it should be like an instant thing, and they
Yes.
write it down in the big historian book, and now
Cut
under the
hands,
ancestry.
blood,
Legacy.
blood.
yeah.
Now
So
you
that's
are blood.
so that's sort of the more common magic is the magic of consent. Not to be
Yeah.
a college RA, but yes, that is something that everyone can participate in. Whereas the
Uh-huh.
more powerful stuff is for like the forecasters.
Right.
And it speaks to this idea of how important connection is to the tribe, being
Yeah.
bound to someone that you appreciate and everything like that. I think that's really special.
yeah, that's cool. Are these people who have mystical or powers? Are they accepted, feared, persecuted?
I mean, in this society, it seems like I have to imagine these forecasters. They have to be revered figures.
Revered. Yeah.
Like
Sure.
they're like the
Yeah.
heroes of your society. You know, they're telling you where to go.
Yeah. Well, I
Like-
think anyone with an oath is in that same vein. It's like, oh my
Yes.
God, look at The Walking Dead. Like this is someone who's promised to give their lives, and yeah,
And I think that can tie to how the ability to form an alliance with somebody has its own kind of magic. Making a vow has its own kind of magic, and kind
Yeah.
of committing to something gives it power, and the more people that commit to it might give it more power. But okay, so we'll say that people with these powers are actually very accepted and revered because we've already established that everyone who has an ability is kind of they find a purpose for them.
But what if we
like-
kind of treated it a little bit like the Night's Watch in Game of Thrones, where it's like, yeah, we like him and we respect him and stuff, but I wouldn't want to be those guys, you know,
yeah.
necessarily,
It's a
or
death
go out of my
sentence,
way
yeah.
to be it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you'll definitely get the respect and the clout points for it, but I'm not gonna tell my son to go become a forecaster, even if you have the power or the ability to do
Yeah.
that.
So common folk don't like if my son might be a forecaster.
Yeah.
Like, no, I want him to be an an
Because
iron monster.
that's
Well,
a terrible
I think it's just
life.
more of
Yeah.
it's a more difficult way of life because it's easier
yeah.
like when you could just be in the center of like the town, village, and whatnot. It's
But that
that's
could
just the
also be,
easiest way of life, and you don't want that for your
I mean,
kid.
think
But
about like how some people don't want their kids joining the army because they're
Yeah.
afraid of the danger that they'll be
Sure.
put in. I mean,
Yeah,
Right.
it'd be
exactly.
something like that.
Plus, it
I-
reinforces that those forecasters have their own residual bond as a group and stuff like that because they're
Right.
pushed out to the outskirts, and then their survival is not only like a part of like the tribe's overall survival, but they're as a group their own secular survival.
Yeah.
Allegra,
I
you were
think
gonna say
maybe.
something?
Go ahead, Leg.
It's gone now. My
Okay,
brain
okay.
threw it out. It doesn't exist anymore. No, it's totally not important.
I think maybe there's a rule too that in the council only 2 out of the 3 seats can be someone who uses magic. So maybe there's this awareness that there has to be some representative for them that isn't magic using.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only 2 out of 3 can perform magic.
Like at most, like
Yes.
you
at
can
most.
you have
At
you have
most.
to have one, but you can't have more than 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Must have 1, but not more than 2.
I also feel like the forecasters are kind of, because they would be the first people to see if the cartographers are right, or if there's a bunch of people coming in.
Yeah.
Or the first people to meet people that
Yes,
might
yeah.
know things that disagree
There'd
with
be, like,
what
a
the
warning
council is
system.
telling people.
Yeah.
Right. They might want to have forecasters in their pocket.
Yeah.
Just like to be sure, like if you send a bird back, send it to my house. Not
Right.
His
the
house,
like
yeah.
community
Ah.
nest or whatever.
Oh, we're
So
hitting
now
it.
you're almost getting into like
Drama.
a corporate
Political
interest
Well, it
type of
reminds me
thing.
of the Spacefaring Guild in Dune. Like they have their own
Yeah.
kind of power.
Yeah.
So let's continue though. We're getting close to the end of some of the questions I have. I have another question about in Ironsworn. There is a group of people called the Firstborn, and these are technically elves. Do we have elves in this world? Is that something where before the storm there were elves, or are we just complicating things with this extra element?
This-
That
what do you
might
guys
be-
think?
This is purely from me liking pretty elves, but I like elves, please.
Yeah.
Do you want?
What if we're all just
you want
half
to hear
elves?
their? You want to hear their butt cheeks clapping?
Hey,
Stop!
spoiler!
No,
We're not there yet.
Stop
Spoiler.
right now.
Spoiler.
Stop right
Context.
now.
I say elves because I've already ordered new elf ears
Okay.
for the year.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
we have
sure.
elves. Are they integrated into it, or are they just kind of like legend,
Yeah.
like they once existed and maybe we'll come across them?
I say legend.
Come across them.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the idea that they're like 1 in 1,000 people actually carry the blood for it.
And you know
That'd
there's
be like
one,
Yoda.
Yeah.
There's one blacksmith who swears the sword is made from like elven black iron, but is fucking lying.
They're like coveted. They're coveted materials. Like an
Yeah.
elven corpse is perfect or something
Yeah.
like that. Maybe it goes back. Elven blood is the people who came before the storm.
Ooh.
Oh, they've like mutated.
Ah.
Yeah.
Oh, so is the Iron Prophet an elf?
That's interesting.
Maybe.
That would be interesting.
I like that.
Because that would make
That's
him
why-
like he could be old.
Yep.
And why he could survive it for so long.
Yeah.
Oh, and then maybe that's what his naysayers say. Like everyone under his church is like, "Oh my God, he saw the edge of the storm." Everyone else is like, "No, he's just an elf.
You
He's
can't
just a
trust an elf."
firstborn.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
trust him."
So
You know,
the
he lives
elven
long.
the elven people were in the Ironlands before the storm, and they probably had some level of prominence or something, and then the storm occurred. Maybe they even were the cause of the storm. Who knows?
I
They got
think
the hell out.
It's important to note the difference between elves and whatever not elves are is their hardiness to the storm, and it's not like elves are maybe a strain or like a variance of human and not a race, because that could be weird
Yeah.
quick.
That's the
Maybe
point.
maybe elves are automatically Ironsworn too. They're born with a vow because of their lineage and because how much they can do in the storm and
That's how they happened. That's how they happened. There was a big vow, an ancestral vow that a fuck ton of people agreed to, and that's why that magic is binding for
There you go.
thousands of years, however long we've been here. And part of that consequence was whatever physical shit that makes elves look like elves.
so they saw the storm. They understood that they brought this folly on the world or whatever happened because it's going to be super vague. And they said in the face of it, we're going to make a vow that we stop this thing or whatever it might be. We become a part of this. I love that.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Well, we'll add that to kind of the legend where it's not entirely
not
clear,
sure.
but it's kind of insinuated maybe, or maybe we think that. And obviously, I think this question's obvious. But did ancient civilizations leave behind ruins and relics? And I think that's an obvious yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
So
I want our Viking raids.
absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the beasts of the land. Theoretically, any wildlife that we come across has only been reanimated for maybe a few hours. I'm thinking, what if the tribe decides to hunt animals only in the back of the storm, because it implies that they've had a chance to live for maybe a couple of days. There's like a kind of like a mercy kill to it.
Yeah.
But I also imagine of like the survival human survival instincts would drive you to be right at the front. As soon as you see something move, you shoot it. It's dead. You eat it. That's
you're
humanity.
Right. You're right.
That's
But
Because
also,
that would be
like,
a little
if we
cruel in a way.
But also, if we know we have limited resources, we're not gonna just cap all of them.
We're gonna
have to.
Yeah,
like,
it has to
we're
be a
gonna have to have that
sustainable system.
exactly.
Also, the
True.
idea that they are harvested at the back implies a cyclical nature that we've sort of already been going through. They're allowed a life cycle from the lid to the I already
Anvil.
forgot our word.
The
The lid
anvil.
to the anvil, and then as soon
Yes.
as they reach the anvil, that's the end of their life cycle.
I think again, Aaron has a point, but
Yeah.
that might be like a who's ruling kind of make that decision. I mean,
Right.
if it's a situation where we haven't found any meat in weeks, yeah, we're going to right to the front, and the first thing that moves, we're taking it out. But I think that if we're doing things right and things are going accordingly, then the hunt tends to happen at the anvil.
Or
So
what about this? Like in Polynesian culture and Hawaiian culture and stuff like that, there are certain times of the month you plant, harvest, and reap and catch things. So what if like the beginning of the month cycle you hunt towards the anvil, but towards the leaners or towards the end of the time you're then hunting more towards the lid, or
Like
even
that.
during seasons or something like that.
Yeah.
Like when
Yes.
things
Yeah.
are scarcer, the hunting is free for on either side. During more abundant times like the springtime and stuff like that, you're only hunting towards
Oh, I
the
love it.
anvil and stuff like that.
Yep.
Is there like a more rugged cartographer that's like declaring what season it is for
Yeah.
everybody? And like when
bet
you can
so.
hunt and where?
I think they would have that at that point because it's been so long. I feel like that would be a natural thing within their jurisdiction where
Yeah.
Like
they
a
would know.
wildlife
Oh, like
society.
we're hitting that this season. We're hitting this time.
It
I-
also begs the question, though, if we've been around for generations and generations, how are there still resources?
Because
I mean,
they
with
come
the-
back to life.
I mean, I think it
no, 'cause
also-
we
No,
kill them
but
in
if
the
we kill it in the eye, it's
Yeah,
dead.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
I-
my answer to that is that if you look at the map that I have here, that is all hexed out.
That's right.
It's
That's
huge.
It's
I mean,
huge.
Yeah.
and every hex counts as like 6 miles. So there's lots and
Oh.
lots of space.
Cool,
And,
cool,
and, the,
cool,
and
cool.
so I think I don't think
I'm
it'll be
thinking about it too
easy.
much. I won't ask anymore
Yeah.
about
no,
that.
no,
No,
I
but-
don't think so.
But
You also
that-
got to consider that animals will adapt to migration patterns and stuff like that, and
That's a
so
good
they
point.
would also be
Yeah, they might
migrating
figure it
just as
out.
we
Maybe,
are.
yeah.
there's an important that becomes super important to like animal husbandry is if we can only accommodate 25 sheep, but our sheep keep fucking, we got to leave some sheep in the store
Yeah.
because
yeah.
Save it for later, kind of thing.
Especially if you're
that's a
talking-
great
yeah.
idea too.
That's a
is
good point.
We
like a
voluntarily
freezer.
throw some in.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a walk-in freezer.
they're the freezer.
Well, no, they were left for us by our previous generations.
Yeah,
right,
We have
yeah.
to do the same. We have to replenish because we don't know how long we'll
almost
survive.
like a religious sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Well,
that-
yeah. We leave those around the obelisks. Yeah.
That could be an issue if we encounter other tribes, is seeing people that aren't recycling, and that's like
We
not cool.
recycle. No. What you take, you put back because you
But
don't know
like-
when we need to.
But like,
we
even
need this.
is there room for another tribe? And it seems to me that in this,
Well,
like,
that's
that's a relatively confined space. It seems like
I
there
think
was
that's
Sergio
Exactly.
is
Space
leading this
tribes.
thing. We're gonna
Past
see another
tribes.
tribe.
I think realistically, the tribe assumes that they are the only survivors in the entire world, and if they come across someone else, it's because the eye of the storm has passed them, and they've like dropped the iron has gone away, but
Yeah.
they're not like their own tribe surviving in the storm.
Yeah.
I
Right.
just want to say this
Yeah.
before I physically forget it, but I think instead of having a normal day cycle, we track time on the cycle of the movement of the storm. So if 2
Yeah.
days we move 5 miles, a whole day is the span of our 2 days.
almost like you're
So-
keeping track, like you're like talking about time like it's distance.
Exactly. yeah.
Ah, that's
So
interesting.
we
Space
didn't go
is
through a
time.
day. We went through a storm cycle or something like that.
Storm cycle, I like that.
Time equals
Space is
distance.
time.
Storm cycle is the time it takes to pass.
Yeah.
A blink, if you will.
Someone needs to write this up and
Right,
create a
I-
spreadsheet for
we
me.
could.
I really like the idea of like, you're totally right that like deer populations would stay within the eye once they entered the eye, and then they would always kind of be around, and like we'd be aware of them. Like if we all lived like in a national park or something like that, you'd be aware of the populations of the different animals. And,
Yeah.
Sometimes you get a bear caught in there. We got to decide what we're gonna do about this fucking bear that's
Yeah.
now in the eye.
You're gonna want that pelt. You're
We're
gonna
gonna
want
eat
that
it.
pelt.
Oh, that's gonna be a
Oh my-
whole thing.
Wait, if this is like a rule of magic, can someone just like, I don't know, hypnotize the bear, and therefore we could have a bear to ride like a horse?
Sure.
I just love the
I'm
idea.
here
If you
for
want to
it.
ride a bear like a horse, then yes.
Yes.
I love the idea that eventually the forecasters are like, "I'm so sorry, guys. It's tiger season. Please stay indoors." Like, it's gonna be tiger
Tigers
season
right
for the
back,
next
fuck.
2 cycles.
I
Stay
want
away
a
from
bear.
the tigers. Like,
So let's get to the
Oh,
kind of the
okay.
One.
the final section here, which is called
Yes.
the horrors. Are the horrors of the Ironlands stories to frighten children, only found in the dark forests and lurking in deep depths, or the dead do not rest in the Ironlands, and at night we light torches, scatter salt, and post sentries? So the implication is how bad is it in the storm? How plentiful are our enemies?
I think it
so
should be
go
in
ahead,
the back, like in the lurking depths in the background,
yeah.
just
Mhm.
waiting.
Almost like sea monsters.
Yeah,
Like
so-
there's stories about them, but
Have
Like
you
in that,
guys
like in
ever
that bit
seen-
of Prince of Egypt where they like split the sea and there's that big fish thing that you don't know
Yeah.
what the hell it is.
Yes.
Have you guys ever seen that really bad movie, The Mist? It was based off of
Yes.
Stephen King's. Like, you know how at the very end he's sitting there in the
Yeah.
car and those big fucking behemoths walk just past him in the fog outside, and in reference he's like 6 feet tall and the behemoth's like 250. I mean, I love the idea of that, of like you walk out there and there are these things that you can't even fathom that are just designed. We have no idea what they are.
like
So,
a titan or something.
we-
Yeah, like titans.
A lot of our shit is like body focused. We have not at all
Ugh.
considered ghosts.
True.
The
And can
spirits,
they
yeah.
move freely in the storm?
Maybe.
Oh god, it's
Yes.
a bunch of
I
ghosts
feel like
swirling
the
around
storm
in
would
there.
actually like it traps them. It's like because it is a mystic kind of storm as well. It's also cursed, so
Mm.
that could be another reason why they say no, it's cursed. If you go in there, you're gonna see some shit.
Yeah,
So
not just
maybe
like Iron Ghosts.
the dead that are
Hell
in
yeah.
torpor, the folks who are waiting for the eye, are spirits until the storm passes through. So the people who are our beacons become spirits, and they are without rest until the eye brings them back to life.
And they could be whatever, like they don't have to be human sized. They could
Sure.
be these titans.
Huge.
Yeah,
that-
this imagination. Yeah.
Oh, yes, if we see some dope ass titans, that is going to be what leads us to their black iron. And that will be what inspires, and that's sort of, I think the forecasters are the people that have that insight of like there
then
is
they
a
have,
tight ass
like-
bear coming.
But
like-
then they have like a motivation to go out and like try to fight that thing.
And
Because
or
they're for
find the black
resources.
iron it's
Yeah.
protecting.
So
yeah.
wait a minute.
Yes.
The bigger the ghost, what? That means the more important person that's
This
there.
is straight
or-
up out of Soul Eater, but the stronger the soul, the bigger the soul is.
Yeah, so
Yes.
like a past council member, like one of the triumvirate from 200 years ago, would manifest in a way that resembles the etchings we put into his iron body or whatever. If everybody called him the bear, he might come up as the bear or whatever.
Ah, I see.
You
Or
have
what
to-
if the spirit goes back into the wrong body when the eye goes over? What if like all the spirits are like mixed up and
Just
someone gets like the
shuffle.
wrong soul shoved
Yeah.
back into them when
Imagine
it comes
the,
out?
the bastard kid that we were discussing earlier. What if their soul is like frighteningly large, and like people like that's what gives them their cred? Because society wise, like they would be this like orphan that no one gives a fuck about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But if they are lost, if they are in the storm,
supremely
and we see their
dangerous.
spirit and it's just insane, like, and they come back after a cycle and they're weird or however, that would give them way more cred than they had in their life before.
For sure.
Yeah.
So it's unusual if a young person has a giant soul, but it could happen.
Yeah.
One could inhabit them, or they
Yes.
could be destined for something.
And there can be like stories about like, oh, if you like the stories to scare kids could be like, oh, that big soul is gonna come in and steal your body while you're sleeping, and you're gonna
Yeah.
get thrown out in the storm, and they're gonna come into your body. And like that one may or may not actually happen, but that can be like,
Well, but I think
like those can be like the spooky stories that kids hear.
yeah. I think there's a lot of
Superstition.
truth to that
That's the
though,
word.
because if you're wandering the storm trying to find your body, you'll take whatever first one you can find. So maybe the
True.
spirits don't see our world the way we do, and so they see us traversing the storm and think that's where I need to be, and that's how we get into fights with these titans. Is they're desperately
yeah.
trying to find home.
And like some of them still like have enough memory to be like, okay, I have to stay around my body.
Yeah.
But like there are other parts of the storm that are like worse, maybe like or more intense, and that's where like the bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
souls
we
get lost out there.
Go ahead.
Oh,
So can anything? We've talked about a couple things that might be able to survive the storm. One of them is a storm bird, which sounds like it's going to be an ostrich, and the other thing is elves. Are we going to commit to this idea that the elves can somehow survive?
I think
Yeah,
they're hardier.
That'd be a
Yeah.
good idea.
I don't know that it's like they live forever out there in the storm. I think it's that they're way more accustomed to it or like resistant.
Yeah.
Maybe the elves can like live outside of it, and they can like they have enough hardiness to pass through the entire wall of the storm to get to the eye.
That
Like that's the
magical
extent
as
of their
well.
ability,
Do we
or
want to
like
give them?
opposite direction.
What if we, regardless of whether or not it's true, but understand that elves, our like storm cycle, is what they can survive in the storm. It's like our 12 hours is their 3 days.
Maybe
Right.
maybe they can just go for like longer.
Yeah.
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 Okay. So before we close this out, I wanted to go over some mechanical game rules that I wanted to talk about that are a little bit homebrewed, but I wanted to just kind of make sure everybody was on the same page about this. So when we begin our first session, one of you, and we're going to have to decide who's going to go first, but one of you will play and will design a new character. But I want to have a rule that a new character can only be generated once a pre-existing character has made it safely back to the tribe. If that pre-existing character is still undergoing a quest away from the tribe or something like that, then the story must be continued until it reaches some kind of conclusion. How does everyone feel about that?
What
reasonable.
happens?
That's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
Yes.
What happens if this person on the quest ends up being eaten by the storm?
I
Stays the whole 12 hours and becomes iron. Do we make a
Good
new
question.
character then?
I would say that story comes to a reasonable conclusion. I mean,
Okay.
maybe we run into them again, but I think yes, that would be grounds to make a new character. My second rule was I was going to say the only type of character whose storyline we can abandon between sessions are the forecasters, because they rarely would be close to the tribe anyway. So they're always going to be on the outskirts. So if one of you wanted to play a forecaster, you could, and then if the next session someone else wanted to play a different character, I would allow it.
Oh, then you're getting this like lovely like thing where you're like skipping around like on these different beats every. Yeah, that's gonna
Yeah.
be great.
Yes.
So
Wait, sorry.
ahead,
Can
go
I ask one question? So, like, are we staying as our character, or are we literally like passing the character? Like,
We're passing the torch.
I think we're past
like if
that.
I'm
torch.
playing, so like if I start a character on like 3 weeks from now, the next person who plays is going to continue playing that character.
They're going to continue playing it unless that character has already successfully made it back to the tribe, and then they have the option of
Oh, I like
continuing
this.
or picking a new character.
Can
I
we
like the
return
chaos
to
that this is
characters?
going to bring.
We can
So, like,
return
say-
to characters, sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do kind of like this almost like sitcom idea where like okay, this person is like running on this beat, and then someone else comes in and they run on a beat with a different character for a little bit, and you're kind of like switching back and forth.
When you
Could
guys see the
we-
mechanics of Ironsworn, it's very easy to pick it up. Like it doesn't matter who is playing this character, simply that we're rolling the dice and figuring out what narratively happens next for this character.
Could we possibly play NPCs that were established in a previous
Sure.
stream?
I see no reason why not.
So, is there like a? It seems like there's one main character at all times. There's you, and then whoever else wants to be there, or is it always
No, because
one-on-one?
because although there's going to be me and another person, we're both, I'm not rolling any dice, we're both working together to determine what the outcome of those dice mean narratively in the story. So I'm just here to help
Gotcha.
bounce ideas off of you, but we're both playing the same character.
Okay.
Right.
Cool.
Cool.
So here's a homebrew rule I want to make about the storm and its movement. If you look at the truth section, it's written out, but I'll try to explain it as best I can. Every 2 to 3 in-game days, I think we should decide every 2 in-game days, you, the player, must roll a d8. With the 8 standing as true north, and 4 is true south. So 7 is northeast, 6 is east, 5 is southeast, 3 is southwest, 2 is west, and 1 is northwest. Every 2 days, in-game days, the players will roll the d8 to determine what direction the storm travels to, in those 2 days. If a result on the die is rolled twice in a row, meaning 4 in-game days pass and we roll an 8 twice, the cardinal direction becomes locked in. The direction can only change if the exact opposite, the direct opposite of the die is rolled. For example, let's say in session 1, Zakia rolls a d8 and she rolls an 8. The storm the storm travels north, and the story continues. Another 2 in-game days have passed, but this time it's Aaron. He rolls a d8, and again it's an 8. The storm moves north, and now will only move north unless the opposite die is rolled. But let's say Eli, on her next session, rolls a 3, which counts as southwest. This means the storm is not going to move just north, but northwest. It's not going to move south. It only stops once it moves once you roll true south. So eventually, let's say, where do I have it here? Let's say Caleb rolls a 4, which is the cardinal opposite direction. The rule I currently have is that the storm stays put for those 2 days, and the cycle is completely reset. So that the next session, Amanda rolls a 6, and the storm starts heading east.
I see.
Does that make
I
sense?
like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives us a chance that if we do roll that complete opposite, the storm doesn't go anywhere, and it gives you an extra couple of days, like in the same place.
So if someone rolls north twice, and then the third roll is west, so we're heading northwest. If the fourth roll is west, are we heading west? Or are we
Still
splitting the
heading
difference between-
northwest. You start moving like at an angle,
Okay,
but always north, always in the northerly direction.
cool.
And we don't have to roll southeast to flip it. We just have to roll south.
You only have to roll southeast if you're moving northeast. Like if northeast was what was locked in.
Okay, if it was northeast twice, then it has to be southeast
It's
twice.
still
Okay,
the
okay, okay.
opposite. Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of all that I have. Is there any other thoughts that anybody wants to write down before we kind of complete our session 0? I think we've got a
if
lot
we
of good
could-
ideas.
Yeah, I think if we can just go over everything just one
Sure.
time to lock everything in.
Sure.
Everything?
It's a lot. Yes.
I
Well,
mean, but
That's
like
like
the
2.5
Here's-
hours worth of stuff.
Here's the good news. We have the Our Truths handout, which I will update right now by saving it. So you guys can open up the Our Truths handout and read everything that we've kind of added. And if you want to edit it, you should have the ability to. If you don't have the ability to, you're welcome to let me know and I'll add you. But it's all written out there, all the notes that we've made for today. And so the final thing is to decide who's going to go in the first session, who wants to join me.
A roll off.
Let's
shall
roll
we
D20.
say?
Roll off.
I think it should be a
Hundreds?
roll off.
Okay.
None of us. No one's gonna want to go first. We gotta.
Let
So-
fate decide it.
Let's
100
see, I've got
sites?
a D6. Let me get a
Terrifying.
new D6. So if we're following according to what's on the stream, Amanda's at the top and then Caleb. So maybe we'll go 1, 2. Zakiel will be 3. Aaron will be 4. Allegra will be 5. Eli will be 6. Okay? Here we go.
Do it.
Well, cocked.
Of course it is. That means we all have to go.
Number 3, which means
I knew
Zakia
it.
is going
Oh.
first.
Yes!
Oh God.
I feel like out of everyone, it's gonna be
Yeah, it's a great choice.
so
for her to go.
Oh, for
intriguing.
sure.
Guys, we're gonna be strap in. It's gonna be weaving for 2.5 hours.
I'm
So
ready.
yes.
I'm
In real
ready.
time.
What quirk are you good? What specific character trait? That's where I'm like, okay, good. They're gonna
Yeah.
create the main one.
No idea.
Awesome.
Bomb as fuck.
Okay.
So the next time we do this, it'll be next Tuesday, and we will play live, and I will go into more detail on the stream about how we play the game. I'll send you guys some information as well, so you have a kind of an idea. The basic idea is that there are moves. Moves are like actions that your character is able to do, and you should think of them as kind of like scenes in movies where a move determines whether you succeed or fail, and how badly or how strongly you succeed or fail. And the main thing to keep in mind is that we want... This is more like D&D than it is Delta Green, in that the heroes, even if they fail, the narrative should still move forward. Like failing and critically failing doesn't mean you automatically die. It should mean more like you get captured or you get really, set back in some way. But it shouldn't mean it's the end. It takes quite a bit, I think, to kill a character in Ironsworn. But
Nice.
we'll go into that and all the other actual fun mechanics of the game next time we play. But thank you for being amazing. I love these ideas that we came up with.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for watching. And yeah, I guess we'll see us next time.
Bye.
All right, thanks guys.